Hello and welcome to a very highly anticipated stream tonight, or today rather. I'm so used to streaming at night. And we will be covering the Great Ordeal in the Unholy Consult, books 3 and 4 of the Aspect Emperor. We will be talking full spoilers, as most of you could probably guess from the title of this stream. This is going to be a fun one. We're going to go over both books, and we're going to talk about probably series-wide themes and concepts and moments. And I'm sure Mark is going to have to educate me and Amanda a little bit because I know we had some questions. But as always, I'm joined by two lovely co-hosts, and that is Amanda from Shelf Unstable. Amanda, how are you?
Doing pretty well. I'm super excited to talk about these books. I've been thinking about it since like last night, thinking about the stream and how good the series was and how awesome it's been to do these with you guys and everyone in chat.
Yeah, it's been a small and dedicated group that have showed up to these, and I always end up learning something from the chat, which is great. And I don't feel like I get judged too hard for my terrible pronunciations and messing up of the plot points, but we'll see how it goes today. And to correct a lot of those mistakes, we brought in the big guns. We brought in Mark from Slowly Read, who has done more for this community on YouTube than anyone that I know of, I think.
I've definitely tried. I've definitely tried to plant a Bakker flag in the YouTube, atmosphere or whatever. The one thing though is like I glad it's good to hear that you're not getting like ragtagged over mispronunciations or missed plot points, because honestly, like I was just thinking about this. It's like it's so hard to really get everything right, especially on that first read through. I was just thinking about this too. I was like, I'm really blown away with both of you, like in the things that you have pulled out of these stories on that first one, because I feel like I was like, man, I almost feel like they got it more than I did on that first round. I needed the reread really bad. So I can't, I've been chomping at the bit to talk about these two books with you guys. Cause for me, this was where you were either going to like dig in or drop out. I knew you guys were going to finish, but I mean, this is just for like the general audience. I like people that are reading the series. I will not surprised when in the last two books if they drop out.
Yeah. I mean, they're absolutely brutal. Me and Amanda were able to kind of bounce back and forth between each other's first time readers. And I think I speak for Amanda as well when I say, Mark, the only reason why we understand it is because of you.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I definitely tried to get everything I could out immediately. I think you guys probably agree. It's like as soon as you finish these books, it's like you're just chomping at the bit to talk about it. You're like, okay, like this is what I read, but I'm like, what is this and what's this? And I got all these fucking questions. Like, so you want some answers, and you might get them or you might not, or you might get a million different answers, because that's the nature of these books. Is there's a lot of different things you can pull out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can approach the series from really any angle, epicness, philosophy, thematic value, character work. I think that it has something for everyone. It might execute it a lot differently than a lot of the other epic stuff that we read in fantasy, but it's absolutely there if you're willing to take the time to read it. And the only thing I can think of whenever I wrapped up the fourth book is that this series would only not seem as quality, in my opinion, if you're someone that's reading for completion. Like you're a person that just wants to get this done and move to the next thing, hit your Goodreads goal for the year, whatever it might be. This is not the series for you, because this one stopped me dead in my tracks. I went through a post Bakker slump after finishing up the series because I just had so many questions, and also just such an impactful series. I mean, very emotional on every single aspect. Emperor, but yeah, this is one that definitely put me in a post-series slump, which I try to avoid at all costs. I'm always hesitant to say things like this ruined fantasy for me, and I don't think it did, but it certainly ruined the month of September. I can tell you that the month of September was a slog. It was a slump after this, and it's been hard to fill that Bakker gap, and I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah, it's a tough. It can lead a void that feels like fucking unfillable,
Yeah.
I definitely ran into my slump after the first read through, and it was funny because there's like, I feel like with slumps there's like different ways they can hit you, for different reasons. And Bakker's, it wasn't because it was like bad or anything. It was like literally just the series really demanded me to sit and digest and reflect. I just couldn't touch anything else because I realized I was still thinking about the events that had unfolded in the book, you know, in the second apocalypse. So it was like, I can't read anything. I still got to think about this fucking series. So I just had to pay it some respect and sit on some shit for a while before I could finally, you know, get back into reading other books. But I really do believe the Bakker Blues is a real thing.
Bakker Blues. I love it. Amanda, I think you felt the same, right? After finishing it, you were a little bit hesitant with anything else you picked up.
Yeah, it took a while for me to find something good. And the slump ended for me with Jay Kristoff, Nevernight trilogy and Empire of the Vampire. Got me going again.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that was enough for me to go pick up those books because Amanda was like, "This is what you need," and I'm like, "Well, fine.
It's like fast paced and super fun and just like twisty and not quite like shut your brain off because your brain's still kind of going from Bakker. So there's, you know, there's like enough to keep you thinking, but it's just like a fun coasting way to, you know, knock out 1,500 pages if you read all of that.
Yeah, I think I definitely wanted to take a little bit of a break from the super dense stuff after this because I just needed my brain to kind of go into recovery mode just for a little bit. And I unfortunately picked up a book after this. It was from the Patreon will, and it was The Pariah by Anthony Ryan, which follows kind of a pariah who joins a military band, and he's on this military slog. And people are like, "Oh, it's like really gritty and it's very down in the bare bones." And I'm like, "Nah, I just got off the slog of slogs. Like I should not have been reading a military campaign next. That was such a bad timing thing. Like I think I could have enjoyed that book if I had read it in like 6 months, but to follow up the slog and the Great Ordeal, come on. I mean, you just can't.
You need a break with something fun, which I think you might have gotten with Lies of Locke Lamora. Yes. And now you can go back to the fun, dense, crazy prose and finish Book of the New Sun with me.
That's what a lot of people have pointed out. And, you know, you have pointed that out. Mark, you told me that Between Two Fires was one that I should check out as well. So, you know, we got some remedies. We don't know. They're all holistic. I'm going to try them. I don't know if it's going to work, but I look forward to maybe hearing the Bakker Blues at some point in the future, hopefully with no God. That would be great. And the more content we make online, hey, who knows? Maybe we can drum up some curiosity. Hey, what if we could get Bakker on here? Could you imagine?
Dude. Man, it'd be like I'd be such a like fanboy nerd out moment. Like, ah!
I mean, if anyone deserves to have that conversation, it's you, dude.
Oh man, you know, I think that it'd be nice to actually have a group conversation with them though. Because I think it'd be nice to see everybody's like what everybody wants, like what's their question towards them. I think the funny thing is you could probably get a dozen people and they'd all, like without even communicating, they'd probably all ask a different question.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I love that. Yeah, I don't know, man. I love these fucking books.
Well, let's cross our fingers and hope for that one day. And I just like to do a little bit of a generic intro. So
I mean, at the end of this thing too, I mean, I'll probably ask you guys some questions as far as like the ending, the very, very ending. You know, we'll get into all that.
Yeah, I think that there's plenty that I have to ask you as well. So it'll be interesting. I also want to see what Chad has to think. But with all the generic stuff out of the way and a good welcome, let's talk about these books. We'll go over the Great Ordeal, and we will go over, you know, concepts and moments that we really enjoyed, and maybe some of the questions that maybe we have from this, and then we'll move into the Unholy Consult, and then maybe we'll do like a series type deal. But the Great Ordeal was the book that, Mark, I believe you told me and Amanda that a lot of people say that that's their favorite. Whereas with me, I have a really hard time separating the Great Ordeal and the Unholy Consult. Like, to me, it's like, even Judging on White Light Warrior, like, I feel like they could have been two massive tomes and I would have appreciated. So I don't necessarily know if I have a favorite of the two, but the Great Ordeal is such an inspection of like, how far can you go before you are no longer human? Whenever you become the thing that you hate and you become the thing that you're fighting against, like, you start to lose humanity. And I thought the Great Ordeal also got into more of the meta aspects, right? And just kind of with no restrictor plate, like, you just get thrown in deep and there's a head on the a head on a pole behind you, which is crazy. So Amanda, I'd love to hear your thoughts overall, Great Ordeal, and some of the things that stuck out.
I loved Great Ordeal. There's so many aspects of it, like the weirdness got ratcheted way up with the whale mothers and the Kellis's son and grandson in the ruins of Ishwal.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, but meeting Nair again, I knew he was alive. I've known he was alive this whole time. I was so excited for him to come back. And I think the Great Ordeal, like the more I reflect on it, it might be my favorite one. Whenever I think just like, which it happens all the time, just the second apocalypse crosses my mind. The scene that is always first in my head is Sorwheel on the boat descending in Ishtarabinth. Just something about, I don't know what it is. Like, I just got goosebumps, like thinking about like that clack, clack, clack of the chain as they're lowered down and the boatman is like throwing pig corpses to the insane, like desiccated but alive remains of these ancient non-men that like just to preserve this horrible existence because it's still better than death and damnation. And just like that journey through the darkness and just like throwing pigs at the wall. Oh man, it's so weird, so dark, and just ominous. And I feel like that's when the like confusion kind of starts ramping up from these last two books too, is like that journey. Oh man.
Yeah, I was impressed the fact that the end of Judging Eye said, well, that is like the deepest, darkest depths in the caverns, and that is as far as we can ever go. And then like he tops it and then throws in just absolute Looney Tune stuff with the non-men. I was very confused during this entire thing. I feel like if I did a reread, this is the part that I would have to like laser in on and make sure that I understand it. And now being about 2 months removed from reading it, it's even more murky now. But it did start to come back to me as I went over my notes and I watched Mark's videos this morning. Amanda, we kind of touched on this a little bit, and I'd love to hear Mark. I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but we kind of talked about like the overall goals of the different factions and in the world, like what the people are trying to accomplish, and the fact that and I got to give a shout out to our friend Mitch, me and Amanda's friend Mitch, who brought this up, and he's saying, the Consult kind of wants to conquer damnation, like they want to get rid of damnation in a way, right? And the non-men are so afraid of damnation that they are hanging on to this miserable existence just so they don't have to face damnation. So, like, do the ends justify the means for the Consult? Like, if it is harming all of these people, but they conquer damnation, would that make it worth it?
Oh, man. So this is great, right? And this is the thing. Like, we're pushing further into the story, and it's been pretty goddamn clear that in Koroi, the Consult are evil as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
But this certainly brings a different perspective. I mean, you have all this information that tells you, oh yeah, they're bad, but you can start to look at things from a different like viewpoint. And you're like, well, what they're doing in maybe a sick and twisted way, but still in a way, is trying to like save people. In a way, it makes the complexity just fucking go out of control. You're like, well, fuck now. I don't know. I don't know anymore who's good and who's bad. Like it literally does kind of throw a little bit of at least for me, it did. At first I was just like, well, shit. Is the fucking Ordeal going to show up at Golgotha and then we're going to find out that they're the bad guys?
That's the feeling that I got from this. And honestly, especially these last two books, man, I am not a Kellis fan. I am not interested in him winning, but like I'm somewhat rooting for him because like I don't want Kami and an Esme to die. And like it puts you in a really tough spot, but it's way deeper than morally gray characters. It's like existence, right? And in life versus damnation. I don't know where I stand still to this day. Like, I don't really understand who I'm supposed to be rooting for, which I don't think that's the point, right? It's not supposed to be a tribal thing.
Who was it? Orang? I think it's Orang. That's like, I think it's back in Prince of Nothing where he's like, we're a race of lovers.
Mm-hmm. And in their messed up way, I think they believe that.
And it's like, then you get hit with this kind of stuff and you're like, well, is that the way, like, are they're in love with the like they're trying to save everybody from damnation? Like, oh, God damn it, like, this is twisted.
They're the ones that we're supposed to be thinking are the villains, but then we get introduced to like the gods behind the scenes when we get Kellis's like outside, there's a head on a pole behind you scene at the beginning of the Great Ordeal. And he like goes to the outside and he sees the gods and they're just like I think they're like drinking baby's blood out of the baby and just eating people. There's like people skewered, and like we get the Kellis's revelation that the existence is the granary and men are the bread for the gods. Like all the gods do is just eat souls. That's their whole purpose. And people are worshiping the gods and not, and you know, thinking the Incoroi or the villains, when maybe the Incoroi are better than the gods. And like the way that the gods get to eat souls is through damnation. And all the gods are kind of different. And so if you're sinning against one god, you're sinning against another god, you're always going to be damnation. You are always going to be food for the gods, like no matter what kind of life you live or who you worship, which is kind of messed up.
And then these gods don't recognize the no god. Mm-hmm. They don't believe in it. And it's like, okay, so maybe Mog Farao is like the key. Like my mind was going everywhere in these books. And I felt like the Great Ordeal was, there's been some questions, but I felt like the Great Ordeal, especially through Kellis's children, I began to wonder about the Dune and thinking about the whole series at this point. We've been looking through different perspectives, of course, but I feel like the main perspective has been Dune propaganda. We kind of watch Kellis do these amazing things, and there's no doubt that he is overpowered to a certain extent, especially around these mortals. But now when you're starting to play with the gods and things you do not quite understand, it started to make me doubt the Dune and Kellis just a little bit. And I just thought back, and I thought about Prince of Nothing when I was reading the Great Ordeal, and I'm like, I have been like lied to almost this entire time. Like I've been given one side of this narrative, where the Incoroi are the other side, the Consult are the other side, and we don't get them to like really the final book, really. And then I think the embodiment of that, the slap in the face to me, was Naor. When Naor shows up and he's on the Consult side and he's like, burn it all, I was like, oh, like there's more to this equation. And I had to really rethink about everything that I had read up to this point because I had been fed Dune propaganda, I felt.
I feel like they're pretty overt about it too. In the beginning of the Great Ordeal, it's almost like the reader is Proyas, yes. And Kellis is just telling us like, I'm not a god, I'm just a dude. Like, but I still got to do this thing. What are you going to do about it? And if you stop believing in me as a god, all those murders that you committed, or all those executions, those holy executions that you did, they're just murders. If I'm just a dude, so Kellis talking to Proyas, or breaking Proyas, put it what it is, was like probably the most heartbreaking parts of the final two books for me. Just all the scenes with Kellis and Proyas, just poor guy.
I agree for sure. And you know, one of those things with Proyas is the fact that he is kind of being like me as the reader. I'm going, no, this is like 4D chess. Like Kellis knows exactly what he's doing. And in a way, Kellis did know what he was doing. He was setting up Proyas to take the fall for the cannibalism, right? But I was thinking in my head, like he's trying to do, I couldn't figure out exactly what was going on, but I'm thinking on the same lines of Proyas, like this is all on purpose. But the meat has taken Kellis. And then I think a lot of this stuff with Kellis ends up it starts to make a little bit more sense once we get to the end and we see that Kellis is not all Kellis, right? Like there's somebody else underneath the ripples of the waves, as some would say. So yeah, the Proyas chapters were probably my favorite out of the Great Ordeal. I would say that he was the MVP, maybe of the entire Aspect Emperor for me. I just love that character. And obviously, Mark, I know that you are a big Proyas fan.
Yeah, big time. I think of all the people in this series, it was somebody that I could kind of continually connect with in a way. Not at first, because when we get introduced to him in Prince of Nothing, you know, he's having people whipped for impiety, and he's kind of an ass, you know. So, but we follow him through the desert, right? We see him in Shima. We see these kind of like personal revelations that he has, and I think that's what kind of like humanized him for me. And then, like like you guys had kind of mentioned, like with this series, it's a passing of the torch. So when I get my Prince of Nothing characters, I'm super excited because I know it's a passing of the torch. So I'm like, when the old crew is on the page, I'm just loving it, and I was immediately drawn in. We start to see it in White Luck Warrior, where Kellis begins to have conversations with with Proyas. But here in the Great Ordeal is really when he just fucking unloads on him. And it, like, I just can't help but think about being such a believer, being the, like, you know, like, this is like something that Proyas struggles with. Like, he is consistently struggling with trying to be the perfect believer king, like the most, you know, pious Proyas, you know. And here it is, everything he's been killing and fighting for is being revealed to him as something else. He's believing in something false. And like Amanda said, that just brings in all this stuff where you're like, dude, if I'm not like holy, then I'm obviously damned. And that is a big thing with this character. Since childhood, that has been something that he's been terrified of. This was something that kind of began a rift between him and a commune. So it's a big deal to be sitting there and listening to your prophet, you know, you're basically your messiah, and him telling you, nah, I lied.
Yeah, and even says, I want you to stop believing. And then for me, one of the most heartbreaking things in the entire series is the fact that Proyas is assaulted by Kellis, obviously, and taken advantage of. And that is when he says, like, I need you to stop believing. And little did we know at the time, but he needed him to stop believing so that he would take charge himself and stop being a follower and be a leader. And it wasn't just for that, but it was also for him to be the scapegoat. As Red Viper says here, he becomes the martyr. And I think it's actually, it might be in the Unholy Consult, but whenever, whenever Kellis returns and he's like, what have you done? And it's like, bro, I'm tired of your shit.
That's a moment, right, where like you're just like, oh, you motherfucker. I think I actually got fuming mad. Like fuming
I was
mad.
Pissed. Me too.
And it's the strangest thing to be that mad and appreciate that I'm that mad, because it's a book that's doing this. Writing, you know, fictional writing has hit me so hard in the core that I'm fuming. I'm like, dude, that's impressive.
Yeah. Anytime that a book can evoke a genuine emotion out of you, I think it immediately slides up. Like this goes up the tier rankings, goes up in your mind. Has to, right? Because Mark, I actually think you used this phrase in one of your reviews, but it makes you feel human. And in a book that is stripping their characters of humanity, it is important for us, in my opinion, to react to this text in a way that is humane. I know some people probably love the series because it's so grotesque, but I think if you went into the series only looking for the grotesque, I think you would leave kind of disappointed. And I've seen so many people, so many people say that too, right? They read Prince of Nothing, go, it actually wasn't that grim. And then like, it's like, yeah, that's actually kind of the point. Like the grimness comes through watching these people devolve and dilute themselves. So I think that the fact that we react certain ways is actually kind of a good thing in this series for sure. Safina, yes, this series is very good. It is probably it's a top 3 series for me all time. I just have to figure out exactly where it lands. Yeah, the series is so good.
I think another cool thing about these discussions between Kellis and Proyas is that it kind of pushes Proyas to take up with Saban. Like he kind of like goes to Saban to be kind of relieved in a way. And I love I love the Kellis Proyas stuff, but I really loved the Saban Proyas stuff too. And I loved how like Saban's like, hey, he told me this stuff too. Am I not also a believer king? And he tells Proyas, he's like, you've been priding yourself on kind of being his pet for too long now. Like,
yeah, Saban is a key to that. He's the key to the Proyas and Kellis relationship, but now we know Saban's being fed information as well, and it's kind of like a blowback moment for Proyas. He's like, wait, what? Did he also abuse you? And Saban is such a key piece to Proyas's arc and Kellis's, really.
Yeah, I felt like Saban really shines in the Great Ordeal.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree. What about the line? And I just have it written down here, so I don't remember actually who says it, but it might have been Proyas. It was definitely during Proyas and Kellis's conversation. But the quote is, "Does it bother you to know that Surway burns in hell?" I can't remember who said this line, but I have it written down with crying faces. So I know that I must have really resonated with it at the time. There was a lot of bangers in this one, but oh, do you remember it?
No, I can't remember.
Okay. I usually I write a tagline and like give context to it, but apparently that day I was being lazy, which is unfortunate. But that's a pretty impactful line. Surway actually ripples throughout Aspect Emperor for someone that has actually been gone for quite a long time. We would be criminals if we did not talk about chapter 4, I believe, Head on a Pole Behind You. And talking about the outside, we kind of mentioned it a little bit in passing, but what the fuck was that?
Dude, this is something I feel like Bakker fans still argue about. And there's all these theories. You know, I've heard this thing where Bakker threw it in because he was in a coffee shop and he looked at a reflection in the window and it looked like there was a head on a pole behind him or something. And he decided to put it in the book. You know, there's some people feel like it's a reference to a Jokely because he's a guy who's got this big boner basically that props up, you know, that goes upward. So it'd be like a head on a pole, you know, behind me. That's like a Jokely's behind you. It's just, there's nothing, because the way Bakker writes, you can't be like, we have all the information, you know, this is for sure it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have to dig it out of him himself. And I doubt he would tell you.
Taking it literally like that is interesting, because I immediately thought of Prosperian with his head on a pole, basically, in White Luck Warrior. And he's, you know, related to the gods. So like, but the gods can't see. Can the gods see Kellis? Yes. Maybe they're watching. I don't know. Who knows? I saw something, a theory that it might be like one of the decapitants that he leaves.
That's what I was thinking.
He switched his head with a decapitant a bunch of times and like leaves his. Catsim 11.
Yes, his head on a pole combined with Malawebe being inside a decapitant is heavily signaling that part of Kellis' soul might be inside another decapitant or somewhere else.
Right. So maybe he's watching himself in the outside, making sure he can get back or something, like his anchor to the inside.
Yeah, like a tether. Yeah. Ben Brown says, any connection to the ending of Great Ordeal with the severed head? I need to reread it. I need to reread the end of the Great Ordeal, and I can tell you if I feel that way or not. Kellis told Surway Burns in Hellline to Proyas. Okay. Cool. Yeah, so the head on the pole behind you, I read it twice, maybe 3 times. I think it's my favorite chapter this year, and probably like my second favorite chapter of all time in any book ever. Like I love I told Amanda this. I want to get a tattoo of it, of a head on a pole behind me on my back. I never want to see it. I just want to trust the artist to do it, and I never want to see it. And I just always want to be able to know that there's a head on a pole behind me, just like right on my shoulder back here. I think it would be sick.
It's your tether to reality.
Yes. Yes. It's such a good chapter. And I still don't have any idea what it means. And then we also, it's in the Great Ordeal. Kellis is end up talking to like that big figure, which I thought was the No God. Do you guys remember this scene? It's towards the end of the book, if I'm not mistaken, or at least towards the end of where Kellis and Proyas are having conversations. And it's like he's talking about how he loves Proyas, or he's talking about love, and Proyas is bringing it up. And Kellis kind of like backpedals a little bit, like he kind of like gets uncomfortable whenever Proyas brings up love. And for me, I was also like, well, that's a little bit weird. Like, why is Kellis so afraid of love? And then I was also thinking about how Kellis had loved Proyas in this book. And I'm thinking, like, that's kind of like the Incoroi, right? Like, that reminds me a lot of them. Like, they're kind of coinciding and paralleling each other in this. But then he does have this vision, Kellis does, of him going and talking to this big, monstrous type thing. And I can't really remember what it was, like what the description of what it looked like was, but I remember thinking that was Mod Farao, and like, was he talking to the No God in that instance? I thought that piece was almost as trippy as a head on a pole behind you, and I still don't know what either of them mean.
I don't even remember that scene, so
it wasn't as like drawn out or long as chapter 4. I don't remember what chapter it was.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain, but I have to admit that a lot of stuff is blending together.
Oh yeah, dude.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Especially
They're
the
such heavy
Kellis.
books.
The Kellis stuff is
Yeah.
a little dense.
Yeah. Lauren says one theory is that he left his head somewhere on the outside as a safety net if things went wrong with his plan. I like that a lot, but like I kind of wish that, well, hey, you know, things didn't go well for Kellis now that I'm thinking about it towards the end of the series, huh? And isn't there a Bakker quote where he says like Kellis is dead but not done? Yeah, I think I read that in your comment section, actually, Mark. So that tells me
it's like he's dead but not gone or something. Yeah.
Maybe he's on the outside.
I mean, that definitely hints to something, right?
11 got it. Do you mean the vision of the massive tree where he sees together with Jokely when he is in the circumfix? I think this is it. And I guess it was a Jokely, and I didn't know that it was a Jokely. So that actually makes sense, which is probably why at the end of the series I went, what the hell just happened? And then someone explained to me a Jokely, and I was like, oh, I missed all of that. Like all the way at the end, I was like, I literally don't know who a Jokely is. I don't know when this happened. And then I slowly had to like piece it together. I had to walk back a little bit of my disappointment actually, because I learned things that I had missed.
Yeah, if you're not like studying the backs of the book, like glossary or whatever, there's like there's plenty of metaphysics that can easily get missed, you know.
Sure.
And it's one thing I think after I finished the whole thing the first time, I was like, I wish I would have paid more attention to the metaphysics.
Yeah.
I was like, I guess on the second time. And I have to admit, I tried my hardest and I still feel confused on parts. Maybe the third time.
Yeah, maybe these are ones that we're going to have to reread many times. I think the one other trippy part is, what about Saban? And at the end, his end at chapter 13 was so well done. The entire battle was amazing. And then he sees himself from the warrior prophet and when he goes to hell.
See, that's one of the funnest parts on the reread when you're in Mengeta and Prince of Nothing and you get to that scene and you know what has happened in the Great Ordeal, because you're like that. I was paying so much attention to certain things because I was like, I remember a little bit like of some weird shit going down with Saban on the Battle of Mengeta, but after you go back and read it, you're like, oh fuck me. And this is one of those things where I'm like, I don't know Bakker, so I can't say if this was just some little happy accident that he pulled off, or if it was evil genius shit that he had literally planted this seed in the second book, and and then finally let it grow, and then showed you in the second to the last book. It's pretty nuts. The first time I read it, I was just like, what the fuck is going on?
the just how heavy the scene of him going to hell is and like seeing damnation. Even if it didn't have the tie, which is so sick, back to where prophet, like just that moment is so impactful to me. And there's just a weight behind his writing, and we've talked about it many times before, but like I feel like the crushing weight of all the circumstance in the judgment in these books. And there's something about, when people talk about prose and style of writing and people will act like it does not matter, I just don't know. I don't know how you could read something like this and not see that. Like, it matters so very much. How you write your story is as important of what your story is. And I think even sometimes those lines get blurred with Bakker, and that's what makes it a very meta experience, and plays with our perspective as the reader, like actually reading the words. It's really incredible. Yeah, I love this scene. I think it's probably evil genius shit, personally, because apparently he had already, he began the series with the idea of Naor's walk at the end of the Unholy Consult. So I feel like if he was already thinking that far ahead, he had to be kind of planting seeds. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because I like the guy and say he's an evil Canadian genius. Benjamin says, benefit of reading the series in a fortnight. That moment was epic and still fresh in my memory. Yeah, Ben read this series in like a fortnight. I mean, it was insane. Like, I've never seen anyone crush material like this guy. He is an absolute wizard when it comes to reading. It's crazy. Is it time a flat circle in Urla? Was blank always the no god? So do we think Kelmomus was always the no god?
I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, and that's why the gods never see Kelmomus. And he's like, but he's the no god before he's the no god or whatever. He's always the no god, always been the no god. The other thing, this is one thing with Kel Momus that I really noticed on the second read through. How many times he looks at people and like thinks of them as insects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, oh my God, dude, like what foreshadowing?
Oh.
Because guess what? The entire world is now insects to him. And he's just squashing bugs.
Oh my God.
Isn't it? It's like the first scene in Judging Eye.
Yeah, I think it's the very, very first thing.
Kel Momus is like playing with a beetle and cutting its legs off at the statue of Ajokli.
Yeah, there's several like times throughout the books that it talks like it's just like he keeps looking at people like fucking insects. They're just tiny and beneath him.
Dude, I just read this volume in Berserk, and don't worry for folks that are reading, it's not really a spoiler, but there's like this god emperor type guy, and he is like so big that he's stepping on people, and he thinks that they're like roses being bloomed, but it's actually people's bodies exploding in blood. And he's like, look at the pretty roses. And they're like, stop, Jesus Christ, you're killing us. And he's just like, oh, it's wonderful, isn't it? And, you know, and it's just like, oh my fucking God. Like, I just made that connection between these two series, which happen to be two of my favorite series of all time. And my mind's kind of blown right now. I love it. Yeah, Camelmus was definitely always the no god, huh? Holy shit. Holy shit. I know we just randomly jumped into the Unholy Consult, but I think that's fine. I think, you know, it says we're going to spoil both books. So I think. So I mean,
fine. I guess that kind of makes me wonder though too. Does that mean that now Coyote was always the no god in like while he was alive? Is this how the nature of the no god? Like I said, I'm even after reading twice, there's still like metaphysics that I don't necessarily have all the ins and outs like figured out, and maybe it's impossible to really. Like maybe that might be the way it's designed. It's impossible to really crack. I don't know. Somebody might be watching this right now like, you dumb fuck, didn't you see the writing on the wall? But,
yeah, make no mistake, I am dumb. I might be the dumbest person ever to read the series. But I'm happy I did
like
it.
Also like one, it's like a Commun's got like has these kids too right at the end, and I don't know, man. There's just so many like parallels from like what we're reading to what has already happened, and I don't know. I'll get into that when we talk about the end.
Yeah, speaking of parallels, the end of the Great Ordeal I thought was a really good one when we meet back up with Nair. You have like the little campfire, and it's almost like it's like a direct parallel to like Warrior Prophet when we were just around a campfire going on a holy war. You have Nair, you have Acamian's back, you have Esmenet's daughter, Kellis's grandson, and the Skin Spy Surway, and it's all like some piece of the original group all getting back together under terrible circumstances.
Yeah, it's the most like messed up reunion of all time, isn't it? And it's a good callback for us that have been on this slog of slogs for these 7 books. God damn. This quote really impacted me from Sorwheel's perspective. The Lord of the Watch, who had ceded all sanity to the Dalar so long ago, hoisted the son of Harwell slack and then wrenched him in two.
I thought Sorwheel died.
So me too. The first I was like, what the fuck? He's dead? Like his fucking head got ripped off?
I was floored when I read. I was like, what in the fuck? I was mortified, to say the least, because Sorwheel, even though he is, in my opinion, the most confusing. Well, I don't know, Kellis is up there, but Sorwheel's POV being so confusing. I love Sorwheel in this story, and I think I said this in the last 2 spoiler discussions. I felt like he was the, like Proyas. He's kind of us in this, and he knows that, like, we're watching him be brainwashed essentially, and then he ends up taking on the mask, and now he is like not all Sorwheel anymore, which is like. I did not see that coming. I can say that for sure. I had no idea what was going on and why it was happening. But
that's crazy, right? Because like, think about that in this moment, especially in the like once he gets to Ishtarenbith and he's in the Weeping Mountain, he has the Amuolus on his head. So at this point, Sorwheel has his regular body, like his regular face. Over his regular face, he has a fucking mask of the gods, and over that, he's got an Amuolus. Like. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's getting hit with all the world building and lore, isn't he? He's bearing the weight of it all. Oh man. That whole scene where he goes down and brings up is it Oranos? Is that how you say it?
I want to say Oirinel, but I think that was actually his Siku. Oirinus, I think, is the father. Yes, I think Oirinus is. It's goddamn it. There's so many names.
Yeah.
It's tough sometimes to get them right, but yeah, when he brings Oirinel's dad back from the fucking depths, that shit's so awesome. I loved it because honestly, like when we get to meet the non-men, I think you guys are probably in the same boat. Like you're chomping at the bit to meet these guys. Like they've been such a fucking like question mark, and we got a lot with Cleric, you know, Cariol or Nilgeekis, whatever you want to call him, but that's still only one. So now we're getting hit with many. But I felt like when I finally got to meet them, I was like, these guys are fucking douchebags.
It was a little disappointing in that fact, right? Like
So when Oirinus shows up and he's like, so you've aligned yourself with the fucking vial or whatever, you know, and he just wrecks shop. I was like, yes. And they're all trying like bathing in oil and just being fucking, I don't know.
And not just oil, but like people oil.
Yeah.
Like the Mwama, like those.
And that's the thing is, I think, like that's great that you bring up the Mwama, because what do you guys think about that? That's something that it really kind of just went over my head the first time. But just the fucking Mwama themselves are pretty fucking dark when you look at like their creation for like basically how they were created by the non-men or whatever. Like they're horribly fucking tortured.
Yeah, I'll be honest, all that went over my head. I can say that confidently.
There's so much like genetic fuckery, I guess, in the Great Ordeal between Mwama and the whale mothers. And that was a question maybe you guys have some perspective on. With all the terrible things we've seen in this series and all the atrocities committed on one person by another or peoples to another, was Mamara's extreme revulsion of the Dunyane's whale mothering due to her being pregnant? You think that had, because she was so like, she was ready to, let's just make this whole race extinct.
She was ready to kill the survivor's kid, right?
Yes.
That's actually a really good point. I never even thought about that. Maybe like the fact that she was pregnant at the moment. That it's very interesting to think about.
Because of all the other things we've seen, like this is what
because that's the thing, right? Like she literally was like in White Luck Warrior at the end, she's literally about to get raped by a guy, and she's doing nothing but forgiving him and trying to tell him like, oh look, like don't do this last thing, you know, kind of deal. And then she lays her eyes on these whale mother remains, and she's like, oh, they're fucking evil as fuck. They got to be done.
I don't think
she's like, even like a commune, you got to kill this fucking kid and shit. You know?
but yeah, after everything she's seen,
like damn, like fuck, they must be fucked up.
What is that though, Amanda? That's a good point. Is it because it's so unnatural? You think?
Everything is so she's been like snorting a dead guy's ashes this whole time. Like,
as you do.
Like, and we kind of talked about it. Like, it's not like everyone's using everything at all times to stay alive. Everyone's doing whatever they can to ensure their own survival and comfort level to an extent that you can get in this world. But this in particular, like, yes, this is using women in order to, you know, for an outcome that you want. But at all times, everyone is using everything. There's slavery, there's prostitution, there's eating other creatures and, you know, raising them and breeding them for that purpose. There's, you know, even just like wage slavery, or I don't know if any form of capitalism yet exists in this world, but just using others' labor for your gains.
Consuming.
And then goes straight back to what the gods are doing with the men. It's all about consuming. And then as in Relatus taught us, it's all about shitting. So existence is just consumption and excretion. And that's it. Like from the base level of natural animals to the gods themselves, just eating shit.
And that's even when you die, you can't escape it because you are damned by the gods who are then eating you through a man.
As well as your physical body rotting and something else eating it or turning into plants that get eaten. It's all a cycle. It's a closed system in the inside and the outside.
Son of a bitch.
And is that what the Incoroi are trying to put an end to? like the endless cycle of consumption and excretion that is just this gross cycle. And then just like how gross it really is all kind of comes to a head in, I think, the Field Appalling chapters in the Unholy Consult, which, holy shit. I love how Bakker's just kind of ramped up our tolerance levels. Like you were kind of saying, the Prince of Nothing trilogy is not, if you're looking for grimness, you're not going to find it really. Maybe a little bit in Warrior Prophet, but the way that he just kind of acclimates us to the disgusting happenings. But I gotta say, I've never read such horror and carnage so elegantly written. It was heartbreaking. You were talking about your favorite chapter being the Proyas and Kellis conversation. My favorite chapter in the series, and maybe one of the best chapters that I've ever read, is chapter 15 in the Great Ordeal, and it is the aftermath of the nuke. And the way that he wrote everything in that chapter, and it's a shorter chapter too, but describing the scalded, our Great Ordeal that is now like rotting from their hair and teeth, and their skin is falling off, and
it's like flapping like wet rags as well. I think that imagery really hits you.
Just like the radiation sickness that they have, and then Kellis coming back and being like, "Hey, you gotta get rid of these guys," and it's Sibawal. After all he's gone through, and now he's like the leader of the scalded, and like there are so many bodies that
that's my dude.
Like, you can walk on water because of all the bodies that are floating in the water, and just like knowing that their Great Ordeal ends here, and what they've, oh my God. And the way he wrote it is just beautiful. I was having a crisis. It was like a thunderstorm outside. I was reading on my Kindle in the dark on the couch, and I was just like,
shit.
I was just tears just streaming. It was intense. I was like, I didn't think he could get me again, but that nuke aftermath was, I like get emotional just thinking about how I felt reading that. It was awful.
And
Sibawal and Proyas,
I mean,
that's what blew me away about the first time I read this book was that character of Sibawal, like where I think his name is Sibawal T. Narnal or something like that, but it changes to Sibawal Vaca after Rhaolith. But Rhaolith, the whole scene, and that's kind of earlier in the book, but I mean, this is where I loved it because it was like, we're getting hit with all the meat, where the Ordeal's just gorging themselves on their enemy, and we're watching them slowly, their attitudes, everything is changing. And I loved how Bakker like puts this. He's like, no better example than the contest between Saroyan and Sibawal. And just like how they make this mad wager on who can fucking go further into the horde. And, and Sibawal and Saroyan have already had like this kind of bickering relationship that, was going on in White Luck Warrior. In fact, that's why Sibawal gets whipped, because he's trying to like kind of outshine Saroyan. So it takes like something that was already like by eating the meat and they're kind of going nuts. It's like, it took that little like kind of thing that was going on between them and really blew it up. And then we get hit with Rhaolith. And I don't know how'd you guys feel about Rhaolith? Because that honestly, some people don't even remember that part of the book. And to me, that was one of like Dagliash and Rhaolith were my favorite parts of the Great Ordeal.
I feel like I am blanking on Rhaolith, actually.
It's before they've gotten really into Golgotarath, and they're like being chased by the hordes and constantly fighting them off, I think. And then Rhaolith is the spot that like even the shrink won't go.
Yeah, the shrink
beyond
the shrink
hell.
won't go in there. And that's what was like mind blowing, because I'm like, I've never seen a place, like where the shrink won't dare to set foot on. So how bad is this place if shrink won't go there?
They're saying that like the hell saved them.
That's what's dope, right? So I like that whole scene, like Saroyan is actually the one that kind of like comes to the Ordeal and like pleads to like go and save them, because he knows they're all fucking stuck out there. They're basically on an island surrounded by shrink, and the island they're on is fucking hell on earth. They go and save these guys, and when they come back, they're not the same. Yes, they've survived, but even Kellis and Proyas talk about how something was left behind, right? Like, the meat man is here, but the fucking soul is gone. And even Proyas recoils when he goes to like, he's happy to see Sibrel, and he hugs him, and he's like, "Oh, what the fuck? Something's like wrong with you." And and dude, all the remaining Sepulore, like they start fucking like they get this reputation. Like the Ordeal men are even scared of them. They camp around unlit fires, fucking eating raw shrink meat, and just sitting in the dark.
Fuck.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's the most metal shit ever.
Fuck. And then it even talks about how like the Shrank like fear them. And I love the line. It was like, all came to fear the sons of Sepulore.
That's exactly what I have written at the top of my notes for the entire book. That's the number one quote I have.
That is like, dude, I just got my arms just got.
It's biblical. Like, it's biblical, man.
It's like so good.
That whole, like how you said, that competition from Sibrel and the other general, I'm forgetting, but
Soroyan.
That whole thing is very biblical. That sounds like something that you would hear. You know, it almost, and it's not the same type of story, but like in the same atmosphere as like a Cain and Abel or something like that, or the Tower of Babel. Like it's an old recollection of this moment in history that could have been so minute, but it's recorded. And the fact that it all gets rounded up with all came to fear the sons of the Sepulore. You know, he picked the right sentence, didn't he? He knew exactly what he was doing.
He does.
Yeah, and he does something that George R. Martin also does very well, and that is making it feel like the places that they're visiting really have history and not just the exposition dumping and telling me these things. Like somehow through the writing and through the characters' interactions at those places and those settings, I actually feel the history, and I feel that generations have passed between times. And very few authors, in my opinion, do this. It usually comes off very superficial. But, you know, I think of Harrenhal in A Song of Ice and Fire feels like I know there's history there. There's an atmosphere. And it's the same thing with every single location in the Second Apocalypse. There may be no one better of setting a scene than our Scott Bakker, in my opinion. So that's a quality from a writer in fantasy that I really come to appreciate. And it seems like it's even more rare than it used to be. We're very fortunate to have some of these locations. They live rent free in my mind now. So
it's especially exceptional when he's doing the topos, like the areas where such atrocity has happened that like the memory of it has sunk into like the atoms themselves, and like it's like a thinness between dimensions, which is how Soban came across himself in Mengeta. Like Dagliash was Topos as well as Plains of Mengeta, so he's able to kind of reach through the plane of reality to himself. And then I don't know if it was a theory that I read or if it's in the text itself, but like they're trying to make Golgotharoth such a topos in order to escape this plane or something. So I feel like that like undercurrent of like the thinness to reality is something that Bakker portrays really well, like using the landscape and using the atmosphere and how the air looks and how the dusty ground is made of ashes and bones. And there's just so many layers to these geographies because of how like the physics of this world works. Super interesting.
I felt this way when I went to Gettysburg. I stood in a field and they tell you these things. And I've been I love like museums and historical stuff. Like it's like my jam. Like I'm like that old dude, like putting in the cassette tape and putting on the earphones. I'm in. But I've been to places where like, it's just like, oh, that's cool. But I remember being in Gettysburg and being in the fields and like, they're like narrating what happened. And I'm sitting there and I'm only 13 at this time. So like, I'm still a sociopath essentially. Cause like my brain is just not forming. Right. And I'm playing like a little league football and getting CTE. Anyways, when I stood in that field and listened to that narration, I could feel it. Like I could feel that this is a place of heavy importance. Amanda used this word and I've used it a million times since, but the gravitas, it's like the greatest word in the world. But there is like a certain gravity to these locations where many, many lives were spilled. And then you also always think of like, for what, but that's a whole nother conversation. But, I felt that. And when I read this, and especially Golgotharoth, like, I don't know. It makes sense to me, I guess, from my personal experience there. And it kind of flashed me back to that. And it was pretty awesome. Ah, okay. Red Viper says, being Greek, I love how he uses Greek words for such thing. Logos, topos. Topos means location in Greek. Very cool. Very, very cool. 11 says, the slow drip of info regarding the history of Urwa is one of the best aspects of the series. The world is the main character in a sense. Yeah, it is just as much a part of the series as anything else, because it's like the plane of which all this is happening. And then we're questioning like whether this is all a circle and like, what is Urwa? I don't know. I don't know. Is it another planet in our solar system? I don't know. I have no idea. And we got to talk about the nuke because we kind of talked about the fallout. But the moment the nuke went off, I was thinking the whole time, holy shit, is this a nuke? And I was like, what is this thing? You know what? I'll be honest. What I thought it originally was, I thought it was going to release like the spirit of like Mog Farao somehow. I thought that is what was in the golden coffer. And when Kellis is approaching it, and then who is watching Kellis from like behind? Saban is. Yes, that's right. And Saban's like peeking at this, and people are being thrown off, and it's just like it's the peak of the series in some ways, and it's like at the peak, that's kind of cool. But when it blows off, I was just like, holy shit, he just dropped the nuclear bomb in a fantasy series. And then I immediately was like, are the Inquiry like an advanced version of us, like from another planet? Like I started playing like with that a little bit, but I think that's probably a bridge too far for many people.
Yeah, that's it's fucking nuts, man, to put something like that in your fantasy story. I've seen it done one other time, but this was fucking just so amazing. And I did like where I had seen it once before. This was where it was done where you don't really see it coming. You're not like, oh, they're gonna blow up a bomb. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Is that a oh my god?
I feel like Bakker does it again with the spear.
Yeah.
The next book.
Laser.
At no point did I think the spear was going to be a laser.
Yeah. Isn't that great? Isn't that great?
And then it's just like a buzzing light striking people out of the sky. And you're like, what the?
Yeah, the whole like thing of Dagliash is amazing. Like the bomb is obviously like a super highlight, but just the battle itself is bonkers. And this, I mean, once again, like obviously I have like, I'm a little biased because I am such a Civil freak, but just to once again, like to now that they have been released from, they're out of Rayleigh, and we're really getting to see these boys in action, and the fact that we do see Shrank fleeing from them, and like the Sepulore are literally like inspiring other men from the Ordeal. Like people are going nuts. They're like, oh yeah, let's go, boys. Like dudes are stripping off their clothes and fighting naked and shit. I mean, people are going nuts. It is all out chaos. It's one of the craziest battles. I mean, Mingetta is like one of my fucking absolute favorites, but I almost wonder if he didn't top it with Dagliash because it's so goddamn good. There are some things the first time reading through, I was having a hard time kind of where am I kind of thing, trying to get my bearings. Like, what the fuck? The second time was so clear that I was like, oh man, that's how it looked. Like, oh shit, okay. So I do definitely recommend rereading, but man, this is once again too, not just Civil, but Saban. Saban really shines in this battle as well. You know what I mean? Like he's just kicking some ass and he goes crazy. This is what's crazy that's going on in this book, because Kellis takes Proyas and he's take both Proyas and Saban, but where Proyas is kind of like becoming the non-believer, he's like, Kellis is kind of forcing him into like killing his belief. We find here in Dagliash that Saban, the non-believer, is becoming a believer, and he knows it's fucking false. He's like, the fuck, he just doesn't get. It's crazy. That I think might get lost on some people too. Just the fact that there's all this battle going on, and you might not be thinking about what he did to Proyas, but it's like these two Exalt generals, both get like fed pretty much the same information. Maybe Proyas got a little bit more physical, bag there, but
more love.
Yeah. But the thing is it really breaks them in two different directions.
Yeah.
It sends one out of their belief and one further into it.
It's like when you break a twig, right? And it never breaks even.
Yeah.
But the one that falls into the belief is the one that immediately is damned. And I think that the line is like in damnation despite everything for Saban. And we get the glimpse of him in hell, like as he's the believer. And then I mean, Proyas doesn't have a great ending either, but oh yeah.
All of them are freaking going crazy with the meat, and I like that's like you like Saban. I can't remember her name, but she's one of the Swayali witches that's there with them. And like he's laughing in the middle of a fucking crazy battle where he could be killed any second. He just starts laughing, and he looks over at the witch, and she's laughing, and he thinks about having sex with her right there, then and there. And it's just everyone has lost it. Everyone.
Yeah. Are they humans anymore? Like, did we see them evolve or devolve into something else?
You know, this is where this really started fucking with me when I first read this book, because I started thinking that we were going to get to Golgotha and we were going to find out that all the Shrank were somehow Ordealmen. And they had been fighting themselves the whole fucking time. Now, obviously, that's not really what happens. But, I mean, this is what the stories can do to you. They can fucking put you on the most insane, heinous fucking theories.
I mean, and maybe even thematically, they did end up fighting and eating themselves, right? Like, because they are very hard to decipher against Shrank at the end, in my opinion. So
yeah, definitely on the Fields of Pauling.
Yeah.
It's interesting how they kind of tried to keep some semblance of humanity. Like they have the judges who kind of oversee everything, but like with all that's going on, the judges are pretty much like just don't rape the Shrank corpses. Other than that, like do whatever you want, but we're gonna have to kill you if we catch you raping a Shrank corpse.
Yeah, there's that line. There's like they killed the ones that were found coupling with the dead or whatever.
That's where they draw the line. So it's like, why are we keeping this last shred? And they end up getting rid of it and then doing it to each other in the end. That was my God.
I mean, that is them becoming Shrank, that like monsters.
Yes, when they start killing and eating and each other.
Yeah.
I mean, is there a more like intimate, gross moment than our boy Proyas licking the face of Sybil, who is now a scalded, like licking the oozing wounds on his face and then raping and eating him?
Yeah, that's so fucking gnarly. And it's so funny because when I finished A Great Ordeal, I was like, I can't wait to see what the fuck Sybil's doing in the next book. And it was like, well, apparently he's getting eaten by Proyas. like, oh, fuck.
And it's just consuming, just like Amanda had said, and then shitting it out. Do you shit when you shit? Like, it's weird to think that these first two books, like whenever we're getting all that dialogue and there's like literally like shit all over the ground, and we're like, this is disgusting, this is depraved. And it's like, really, he was kind of saying like what is to come. Like, this is humans. Like, this is what it's always going to come down to. This is humanity. Humanity is consuming and excreting. And when you look at it that way, no wonder people think this is a pretty grim series, I guess, huh? Kind of makes sense now I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. And I love the moment when Sorwheel and Serwa enter the Field of Pauling in what do they see, like severed heads being impaled
on dicks.
Yeah. And they find Proyas, and it's almost like he's devolved into such like a feral state of nothing that he's almost like childlike when he looks up at them like, should I eat him?
Yeah.
Like, Proyas, like, no.
In fact, you shouldn't.
Don't. And not just because of the radiation sickness that they are full of.
Yeah. Ugh.
Ugh.
Pretty wild.
And then, and then immediately Sorwheel, we get this beautiful reuniting scene with Zoranga, who's still alive. Sorwheel and Zoranga. I was crying when they like hug and they're back together, and then immediately Bakker has Zoranga abusing Sorwheel.
Yeah.
And it's just nonstop. And then and that all kind of culminates for me with Kellis returning, and he's like, oh, Proyas, how could you do exactly what I wanted
have you done?
Do? Yeah.
Such a shithead.
Oh, the worst.
Well, we're starting to kind of get into the Unholy Consult. The last thing I wanted to talk about in the Great Ordeal, and then we'll just jump right into the final book. One, I wanted to make a note. Two things. So I want to make a note. The parlay scene with Fanile with Esmenet is fantastic. The Kasharm versus the Skullman was neat, and Esme getting her moment with the Corée was absolutely badass. Esme Unbroken is born and is one of the coolest things in the series, in my opinion, because I think Esme's fantastic. Like, her character arc is unrivaled in a lot of facets from the things that I've read. But the one last thing we do have to mention is what happened with Kellis, the White Luck Warrior, and Malawebe at the end, and Kelmomus being there, like, very confused at first.
It's very confusing because he just like writes it kind of chaotic. It makes sense because of if you were there, like viewing it, it'd be hard to make fucking sense of the like what you're viewing, you know, what you're watching, because that's just pure fucking chaos. But what did you guys think? What did you think when you first read it? Because obviously it's like one of those things it's hard to make sense of, but you try.
I had no idea what Melawebe was going on, and I was also super confused. Like, for like a half a second, I thought that like Kelmomus was going to run out and get killed, and then at one point I didn't understand what had happened to the White Luck Warrior. Like, I don't know. I honestly didn't have much of an idea, and then
I was really confused the first time too. Like, what the fuck just happened? Did the White Luck Warrior win? Or did he die?
I thought he won. Yeah,
you know, like, what did he just kill Kellis? Like,
that's what I thought. I thought Kellis was dying. I was like, oh shit.
Another thing I think that was started, maybe it was just because I was going down this like theory path, was I started like the further we got into the Great Ordeal, I started thinking that Kelmomus was the White Luck Warrior, because he just so happened to be kind of like almost seemed to have his hand in all his family's deaths, you know. And when Thaliapa dies, he's literally there. Yes, so is the White, like, Narinder, but so is Kelmomus. And I was like, fuck, dude, is he the White Luck Warrior, the real White Luck Warrior? You know, because he's the one that's also finally like, I'm going to kill my dad. You know, like, he's got almost the same motivation as the fucking dude. Ugh, it's crazy.
And so
the scene where Thaliapa dies, I thought was really sad. And I actually really like that Thaliapa kind of goes out like, I mean, she, not in the manner that that gets killed, but more so in just how she takes a stand against the White Luck Warrior, you know.
Yeah.
But it's pretty cold where she's like, I'm an Anasarimber. Who are you? And he's like, I'm just the guy that was there.
Shit.
Oh
shit.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot going on there, and I think, you know, that's why it made maybe hard for me to really see what the fuck happened with the whole Kellis and everything, because I'm still just reeling with theories and just what the fuck is going on. It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And honestly, even to this very moment, I never realized, Ben Brown says this, Kelmomus surprised the White Luck Warrior who couldn't see him, which I think is in how White Luck Warrior basically doesn't succeed, right? Is the fact that he was shocked in that moment. And now having the context of the ending of the series, that's insanely awesome. And also a bold decision, a very bold decision to have something that isn't going to pay off for a whole nother book be the, like, foreshadowed in the final moment and happen this, because I'm sure a lot of people read that and went, oh, well, that's convenient. Like, I'm sure a lot of people said that, just thinking it would be convenient at all. Like, oh, why can't he see Kelmomus? That's kind of silly. And then, like, we know he's Monk Pharaoh. Like, he is the no god.
My theory was that they couldn't see him because Kelmomus had somehow absorbed some Marmus's soul. And so, like, having two souls inside him made him super confusing to the gods, which was my theory on why Kelmomus was invisible.
That's right.
But I like Baker's idea better.
Well, I think me and you were on the same path, because we kept going back to Samarmus. We kept going, oh, okay, Sammy and him, like, he is like an anomaly because of two souls. It's unnatural. It's not something the gods can account for. And me and you were I remember we were both on that path, and then we were completely incorrect. but
probably, in the best way.
Yeah, probably led that way on purpose a little bit too.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might have been manipulating us a bit with that, which is pretty cool.
He would never.
He wants us all to be happy, and he tells us exactly what's going on. So I guess we will run into the Unholy Consult now, and we'll kind of talk about the ending of the series. And I will start it off with the best line in the entire series, which is, so did the Great Ordeal of Anasarimber Kellis perish in salt and butchery. Then you turn the page, and it says, It just says Appendix 1.
Oh, dude. I mean, I don't know about you guys because, like, I don't. Sometimes people will, like, you know, like fucking go towards the end and like just kind of. They might not read it, or some do read the fucking end, and that's just crazy to me. But a lot of people will just kind of flip through the book and see like how much they got left or whatever. I did not know that that's where it was going to end. For some reason, I thought like that was the end of a chapter.
I did too. I thought there'd be an epilogue.
Oh man!
Look how many pages were left. There were so many pages left.
I know. That's the thing is you still got this big chunk of the book, and you're not. I mean, you're expecting there to be the glossary or whatever and stuff, but you were probably not expecting it to be that thick.
He just spit in our face with the last sentence, didn't he?
It's a beautiful. It's that I guess but it's beautiful as all fuck. It's like such a like you said. It's one that's gonna stick with you, and I think it's one that sticks with every fan that reads this series for one reason or another. I would love to hear though what the fuck you were feeling when you read that, and then found out it was the end. Like, how did you guys feel?
So I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I was not super in love with the ending at first. Especially whenever I realized that Ajokli, am I saying that right? Is it Ajokli? Because I'm going to have to say that word a lot. Ajokli was like in Kellis the whole time. And then like someone's like, yeah, there's like a brief mention of him feeling kind of different and that he's not in control. And I was like, if that is literally it, then I'm so pissed. Like I was like, I just feel like this is kind of like shoehorned in. Like I was saying all these things. And I was still saying, I love the series. I love the book even. But like this end just doesn't do it for me. But then you start to go back and you look at some of the hints, right? Kelmomus in front of the Ajokli statue and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? This is pretty goddamn genius. And why would I expect to have picked up on these things with this series being as dense as it is? Like, there's so many things that aren't spelled out for you. So I still feel as if the Ajokli thing is my least favorite part, if I'm being honest. But I have completely turned around on Kelmomus being the no god. I think Kelmomus being the no god is actually genius. I think it's the best part of the ending. I also love that the Consult were Dune Yane, because why the hell wouldn't they be? I thought that was sick. I like the whole him being seen with the as a pillar of salt, as the foreshadowing, the writing, the whole thing I built up to it was awesome. And then in the room. So I would still say the Ajokli stuff. I'm hoping to get even more clarity on that today, but it is probably my least favorite part, even though I don't hate it like I did. I would say I like it at this point, but I'm still a little sus overall. Amanda, what did you think?
Yeah, what about you, Amanda?
Oh man, the second it was that line that the pillar of salt that was Anasser and Burkellis. And then Kelmomus gets like yoinked into the sarcophagus.
Mm-hmm.
Like that moment when Kellis went into the sarcophagus, or Kelmomus, oh my God, like heart racing. And then the moment it really, really hit me that this is like the end was when Mamara's first child comes out and is healthy. And then the second one is stillborn.
So good.
The stillbirth of that second child, as soon as that happened, I was like, oh, fuck, it's over. Like the no god's back, and Kelmomus is getting pulled into the sarcophagus. And then Mamara looks up at the figure in the sky and starts screaming, and like, oh my God, like just chills. I loved it. There's a really, really good couple paragraphs of like everyone around Irwa all feels it. They call it like the boating, I want to say. Like the moment the no god returns and all the wombs die, like, and all like suddenly every womb was a grave, and all of the midwives were caretaker or what's the word, coroners, and just like everyone can feel it. There's just like a feeling that settles upon everyone, and it's just this feeling of doom, and then, oh my God. Yeah, just the last paragraph and the last line when all the schoolmen are fighting their last stand, and then you see all the Kore that had been collected, and they all like block out the sun with how many Kore are falling down on these schoolmen. And that's the end of the Great Ordeal. And I was crying at my desk at work. I was like the meme of the guy in the corner at the party. Like, they don't even know the no god's back. And,
Yeah, the first
Loved
time I
it.
read that, it took a bite. It took a bite out of me. My first initial reaction was like, "What the fuck? What?" And it took some time for me to kind of get my first initial like comfort with the ending was like, "Oh, there's going to be more," so that I don't have to be like too pissed off. Now, since rereading it, I've actually it might sound crazy, but I would say I wouldn't be surprised if you guys reread it and kind of come up with the same deal where you're like, no God, or if it comes out or not, it doesn't matter because this ending is like almost fucking perfect.
Yeah.
And it's like seems almost like nihilistic or whatever. Because even like when the end happens, I wouldn't blame people for being like, well, what the fuck, man? I feel like some people lost like what was the point? Like where's the agency here for some of our characters, but I think you have to dig deeper. And I like how, Jimmy, you look at that. Like you look a lot at this, and so do you, Amanda, about the agency of these characters. And it's been kind of, there's almost like arguments that can be made all throughout the fucking series. And it just really depends on what you pick up on. But for sure, I would say, especially if just a regular reader picked these books up and read them all the way in, I think they'd be super fucking confused on how you could end it like that.
Yeah. And
I mean, when you say like, what's the point and everything, like I have this coffee cup here that says nothing means anything and we're all going to die.
Yeah. And some people say that this series is like a deconstruction of meaning, and it could be, you know what I mean? I think that there's a lot of meaning though still in these books.
I think when we take a look at where we leave off, right, and we still have even more stuff to talk about, Naor and whatnot, but the fact that there are two babies born, and I think someone had asked like, why is one immune and one isn't? I think it's literally timing. I think how like someone's born a couple seconds before the other one, so the one is actually born right before the stilling.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like if the No God duology was written, it feels like that child is meant to conquer,
because it's the last one born after it.
It feels like it is set up for the chosen one, and I just wonder, like, is that something Bakker would ever do? I don't know. Like, well, does he give that kind of ending to a series, or is this the ending?
In a way, you could say, because we do throughout our journey, we learn about what came before. Mm-hmm. And we're literally reading what's happening now, and it just seems to consistently parallel with what came before, right? So this is just another one of my asinine fucking theories, but this is where I've landed, and I've planted myself pretty firmly. Bakker's given us everything we need to know that, this apocalypse, the No God will be defeated. But the problem being is, I truly believe then we're just going to start all over again. Because if you remember, the world's completely forgot really about the No God. They've completely forgot about the consult. The mandate are the only ones holding on to that. So it's a world that has long forgot its own destruction.
Yeah.
And we know, those that are fucking refuse to remember history are doomed to repeat it. And I really do think that there might be some kind of, this is where it gets a little tricky. I think that there might be a time loop in Yerwa, it's maybe a strange kind of time loop. Look at this. But Yerwa is always going to be in an apocalypse. Always.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And could you not argue that Kellis's mission for remembering what came before is what brought it again? Because if he had not went and found Esme and went on this trip to see his father and to kill him, and then to search for what had came before, he would have never had Kelmomus, and Kelmomus then would have never become the No God, and he was always the No God. So it makes you wonder that, just like we're talking about doomed to repeat it if you don't learn it, but if everyone had just kind of left it in the past, do we think that this wouldn't have happened? Because Kelmomus wouldn't have been there to be the No God. Does that make sense?
I think also another thing that kind of I want to put into play is this whole the determinism. If it's deterministic universe, the thing is this was bound to happen. And you get somebody like Kellis, who is literally gone to the outside and come back. Like, this is a guy who's broken the rules, right? Oof. But if it's a deterministic universe, it doesn't matter how many rules you break.
He was supposed to break the rules.
It's still going to end the way that it's supposed to end. And one could even say, like, find a little comfort. And maybe some people might think that Kellis's demise is a little anticlimactic. but that's the thing is like, you have a guy that could literally rule the world. And then when it gets to this point, like, some ridiculous shit happens. Just a thing that you're like, not even he could perceive, because it's just like, the thing is he was not meant to fucking win that fight. The no god was meant to be resurrected. It doesn't matter how much power you have, whatever the fuck, deals you make with the outside. When it all boils down to it, it could be wrapped up in determinism, where it's just this things that you cannot stop. It is going to fucking happen.
And the second apocalypse is just a prelude to the third apocalypse.
Exactly.
Which is actually like the 89th apocalypse, but we forgot about everything before.
And that's the thing. We could literally be on the 100th apocalypse.
Well, and I think there's something about like the nail of heaven might be like a wormhole where the Inkoroi are coming through. And I think it's said that they've tried this before on a ton of different places.
Yeah, they have.
So
yeah.
Maybe it's our second apocalypse, but the other places have their apocalypses.
No, you're all right. They have done it many other places, and they've wiped out.
So there are a ton of apocalypses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shit. That's pretty trippy, honestly, and to think about. Like, also, you have to wonder if a head on a pole behind you is that the exception? Is that breaking the determinism? Like, I need to know what the no god duology would be about, because I'd also seen that someone said that it would be almost like 2 books of tales, like of what has happened in the future. So like it wouldn't be like these books. Like it wouldn't be just a novel and then a sequel.
It's not a quest to destroy the no god. It's more like vignettes about what everyone's doing now that the no god's around.
Yeah, I've heard that too. Though I have to say, like,
so depressing.
The thing is nobody really knows that. Like, no one could say for sure that's how it's gonna go, because Bakker hasn't put it out. And I talked to Madness, and he told me that he's kind of been enlightened on some stuff, like some directions that he can take it in. So it's kind of tough for me to like say, like, this is what's gonna happen. I think it's still very open. Like, it could go on, or Bakker might not ever return. I was on a live stream and somebody was like, "Oh, are you doing a live stream because fucking Bakker announced on his blog that he's doing the no god?" And I lost my shit. And I cannot find any proof of this though.
Oh man,
I might have got trolled.
That's pretty good troll. I mean,
I was losing it, dude.
I feel as if that it would be a hard thing to write. I think it's there if he wants to do it. He obviously doesn't have to do it. There's a lot of people I read online when the reaction is like, we don't get the no god, this is shit. Like, I've seen a lot of people feel that way, and maybe it's because I've just gaslit myself from like being okay with the Song of Ice and Fire never being finished. But like, I'm okay with this. Like, I'm okay with this bit of I guess you could call it a cliffhanger if you wanted to. There's just so many questions, but like those questions will keep the series alive forever for the dedicated fan base that is here. So I want to ask this, and I don't want to speculate because like it's more about the person rather than the series, but like, do you feel like maybe events in Bakker's life has changed his outlook on things? Like, because obviously there's a lot of philosophy baked in here. Like, is it possible that maybe he doesn't feel the same way? And like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think very likely. I mean, we all, just as human beings, are kind of always undergoing a stage of transformation. You know what I mean? Unless you're just completely staying stagnant. But I mean, if you're doing anything in life, like, just your experience will always kind of change you. Maybe it's very minute, or maybe it's profound. But there's no way that he's still the same guy. And especially, I mean, you guys know, as you get older, your perspective just changes just through age.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's not ancient by any means, but he's definitely an older gentleman. And so I can only assume that he is definitely a different person from when he first spawned, Prince of Nothing in his head when he was like a teenager or whatever. So that could be factors, For me, like I said, this, and maybe it's because I could have even concocted my crazy theory just for like a way to cope. you know. But the thing is like, but that's it though, because like if you search, you will find, right? Like, or at least you'll find what you can and twist it around to make it the thing that you want. But I really
Finding meaning. Right?
I really do think that there's so many things. Like Bakker gave us all the pieces, like to basically tell the tale of what's going to happen. You know, we got Mo Angus is now in charge of the fucking skill Vindy. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter that Nayor is gone. They still have a leader. Not only do they have a leader, they have a leader that has like some Dune Yang like thinking, which is just like Nayor. So it's you know, there's a lot of stuff. We have a Kamian and Maimara's son. So we have like a kid that was born. You know, one thing actually, what did you guys like? I want to kind of retract a little bit because this part messed me up a little bit. And I thought we were going to get another prophecy the first time I read it when Proyas is like dying in a Kamian's lap. Because this is the deal, man. I thought we were going to get like another like Selmomen or whatever prophecy because it's literally a king dying in a sorcerer's lap.
Shit.
You know? Yeah, and I was like, fuck me, dude. Is Proyas going to say something about a Kamian's son or something? Like I don't know, dude. It really got me going. But I do think there's a lot of shit in these books that give you what you need to kind of it is speculation. You're kind of, but I think that's kind of what Bakker likes to do though too. Yeah. I think he likes to leave it for you to put things together, draw your own conclusions. You know, he gives you enough structure to not get too lost.
Yep.
But I mean, there's basically everything is still in play. There's still a fucking, you know, there's still a spear out there. That got casted down, but it's still out there. There's plenty of stuff in play that could say that the No God's going to fuck some shit up, but eventually he's going to get taken down.
Yeah, and I think we can assume that he will, right? Because of the past experiences. So, I mean, I guess it's also interesting to see if it changes in any way. Like, does the history alter itself a little bit each time? We've seen this in other things that have circular plots as well. So, oh god damn, we went right into the heavy stuff, didn't we? We didn't even wait. 11 says, any reaction to how the inquiry gave the original tribesmen the tusk? I thought that was dope.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Very much like aliens influencing ancient world stuff, right? Like, you know, which is I always find fun to kind of have thought experiments with. The Nail of Heaven appeared shortly before Arcfall, so it might be a wormhole. You might be onto something there, Amanda. And I love that.
Nice catch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this is one of those series that really does formulate like sci-fi, horror, and fantasy all in one, which is the best in my opinion. Red Viper says Madness said that Bakker has told him that we will definitely see the effect of No God's presence will have to everyone. The boating that will be really heavy. Yeah, it will absolutely be really heavy. And if really the No God is just Akka and Esme in a wacky like we're raising this kid during the apocalypse, blah, I would be down actually. I'd be in. Yeah. What do we think of Nayor's final walk?
I did not understand a single thing about Nayor.
It's a little it's once again, you're so much is going down. It's not super straightforward. From what I gather, I guess one of my kids just died, but nah. I can make some more. No, I can't actually. Fuck.
What's the No God back?
Yeah.
The streams went meta. This is beautiful.
Oh god damn it! What were we just talking about?
We were talking about how Nayor doesn't make a damn lick of sense.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, and it's right. I mean, I do love that. Like, you get that part where he's telling the people, like, "Look, you're gonna follow him now. You know, if you don't, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna fucking haunt you." And he's like, and you can imagine these people like they're like, "Oh fuck, we know what he was like when he was alive. I don't want to know what he's like when he's dead." Like,
and like, even if they don't believe him, it's like, do we want to risk it?
Yeah, that's it. It's like you just don't. You're like, all right, I won't go there. Fuck it, we'll follow Mo Angus. But this is where the metaphysics, I think, get a little tricky, and maybe understanding like the limitations were just like of the gods, right? Mm-hmm. Are they omnipresent? Are they like a form that can get around real quick or whatever? It seems like to me like when we're in the golden room and we get that whole deal and Kellis kind of a Jokely's out and we find out that a Jokely is it in Kellis or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's about to win. He's literally about to win because like a Jokely's like, look, dude, we're on the thinnest part. Like we are in the doorway to hell. Like, welcome to my fucking house, you know, like get ready. And then Kelmomus, of course, like screws everything up by like pulling Kellis out at the moment and all that shit.
Like Kelmomus existing has everything to do with all of the big moments in the series. It's so
yeah. But so then you got this point, like, right, like a Jokely's got a plan. Like one way or the other, like he's obvious, like he's revealed it to the mutilated. And then Kellis gets smoked. So a Jokely fucking got fucked. You know what I mean? He's at victory's doorstep and the rug gets swept out from underneath him. And so he goes fucking immediately across the goddamn battlefield and takes up with Nair. So
and he just moves on.
I think that maybe like that scene with Nair is both Nair and a Jokely calling for Kellis. Because a Jokely's mad at Kellis as well. He's like, you motherfucker, you just fucked me. Like,
and this is blowing my mind what 11 just said. He said he becomes a Jokely since he is the aspect of hate to Kellis' treachery. Them being connected to the birth of the same god gives more context as to why Kellis couldn't kill him in the Warrior Prophet. So I think if like this is canon, then 100% this is deterministic. Without a doubt, the series is deterministic. And I think that that's always kind of been the case. Like even when you think about the Dune Yang and like their powers and whatnot, I think that's kind of what he's getting at. But then it takes, oh my God. Because Naor is always outside of like Kellis' range. Like he's always like just one step too far to not be able to kill him. And like, it's like Kellis is intrigued by Naor in Prince of Nothing. And we kind of know because of that Naor is important. But like little did we know that it had something to do with a Jokely. So was this a Jokely stuff being set up in Prince of Nothing? That's a question I have. Is there hints here?
Well, like how much did Moengus Sr. play into this too? Because Nair and Kellis would never meet if Kellis' father hadn't done what he'd done to Nair.
Beautiful point.
It's just at all.
And
how far back do you have to go in that case? Like in order to get this circumstance, like everything, all the darkness that came before, all had to all be deterministic.
So fun, you guys. When you reread it, you're gonna like, because now you guys like you did play detective, but now you're gonna be able to go on for the ride, but you'll all be able to play detective for specific things that you know to look for. It's not such a question mark, so you can go back and start looking for these clues.
Well, let me ask you this, because I was gonna wait to the end to ask this, but I guess I'll start with my statement. I feel when I think about rereading, I find myself wanting to reread Aspect Emperor more than Prince of Nothing. Which is a little strange, but like I find Aspect Emperor to be the real series. Not real, that sounds like kind of arrogant, but that's the series, like that's the bread and butter to me now. Do you all feel that way, or do you feel yourself wanting to go back to Prince of Nothing? Like I definitely, especially for this Jokely stuff, like I gotta find something for a Jokely back in the original trilogy for me to be even more okay with the ending. But like, how do you all feel? Like, do you feel the need to reread Prince of Nothing, or?
I definitely do, even starting just from the prologue, when in the prologue of Darkness That Comes Before, you meet the non-man that I think you see again in the Unholy Consult, I think. Like meeting Kellis.
Trig.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
He's the non-man from the prologue.
Holy shit.
And just seeing Ishwal in the prologue again, I want to see that because of what we know about Ishwal now. And maybe just picking up on it. I'm really interested to just go back on a lot of Dunyan stuff based on what we know now. And I think a lot of that is in Prince of Nothing, as well as the Warrior Prophet, I think is really important, not just because of what happens with Soban and that connection, but just seeing, because I feel like in the Warrior Prophet, the first like Holy War it's like a little glimpse into what we'll get with the Great Ordeal. So it just feels like it's all so much setup. There's so much to go back on and get new perspective out of. I want to reread the Circumfix stuff when Kellis is hanging with Serway, the whole heart thing. I read something about Ojokli maybe being present for that, but I'll have to reread.
Oh.
And then Thousandfold Thought. I feel like I don't remember a single thing from Thousandfold Thought anymore.
Dude, same here. The only thing I remember is Naor killing Moangus.
Same.
Like, that's the
and
only
the
thing
very
I remember from that
end.
book.
Yeah, and Akamian renouncing everybody.
Which I thought was him giving agency to the series, and now I'm like, oh no. Naor even says like he has you in his pocket still.
Dude, Thousandfold Thought is so good. I totally agree with you. When I finished this series, I wanted to reread it, but I wanted to reread it more for Aspect than I did for Prince, which really blew me away because I was like, dude, I love Prince of Nothing. Though after my reread, I have to admit, I think I enjoyed Prince of Nothing more on the reread. Wow. I mean, I love this whole reread, but it really, man, I don't know. But maybe besides Darkness, because I just already put that so high up on my list. But like, I feel like Warrior Prophet and Thousandfold Thought became better on the reread. Where I don't know if I could say Judging Eye got better for me on the reread, but the next three, it was really tough for them to get better considering I had a like fucking out of body fucking experience with those books, man. You know, I was like, you can't really top it. Yeah, that's a great point. That's Christos, man. Like a fucking during that circumfiction, there's definitely some things to pay attention to because it could definitely be show you that that's where things start to go fucking crisscross with Kellis.
And what book is the circumfiction in? I can't remember.
That's Warrior Prophet.
The Warrior Prophet. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was Thousandfold Thought or not. Okay. Yeah, I guess I'm rereading Prince of Nothing. God damn it.
It's really good on the reread, guys. The thing is like, I don't know, like I loved Zarias so much more on the reread. Like his fucking ridiculousness is so funny on the reread. Like it's funny in the first time, but like, man, there's a lot of shit that's just so good. And it hits different. Like I said, Mengeta is a whole nother battle after knowing what happens to Saban in the Great Ordeal. There's a bunch of things that you're just like, ooh, I get to kind of try to find these little seeds, find these Easter eggs, you know.
Another thing that'll be really interesting to reread will be Akamian's Seswatha Dreams. Seeing what parts of that first apocalypse are repeated and twisted in what we're reading now or what we know we're going to read. Anything about the Heron Spear, I'll pay a little bit closer attention to. And another, just real quick, another surprise technology or surprise sci-fi in my fantasy. When Kellis goes into the Golden Room and all of like the amputee or like the original Inkora or whatever they were, they're holograms.
They're holograms. And he's like reaching through them and shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, they're holograms.
Yeah, I think he even sees like Shariatis or whatever, and it's like a fucking hologram, and he realizes it, you know? He's like, how long have you been dead or whatever? Like fucking, oh, it's so good.
So good.
Absolutely insane.
Did you guys have a favorite character out of like the Unholy Consult? I know mine.
I would probably say Serway.
Yep.
Yeah.
She kicks so much ass in this book. To me, she became the hero.
Yeah, Sorwheel for me. Sorwheel's death is one of like the most emotional moments I've had in like reading. Oh my god, just wait, like all the repeated. Sorry, I kind of steamrolled this with Sorwheel's death scene.
Go for it.
But just like the kind of like what might happen things that we keep getting of him like touching Kellis with the Kore and no one's seeing it, and Kelmomus is just freaking out like he's a traitor, he's a betrayer, and everyone's like, shut up, Kelmomus, like everyone in here is true believers. And how we just keep seeing it, and then we finally see Kelmomus leap and stab Sorwheel, and we get the one and it's in the middle of a death. We get the one kind of happy thing, and we get that Sorwheel was not damned. And Sorwheel, like, seems like he doesn't face damnation. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. But like upon dying, and he hears his mother again, and it's the like, set down the hammer of your heart and the kite of your breath, and I'm here, Sorwa, like, rest in my arms. And whew, that was emotional for me. I love Sorwheel so much.
Yeah,
I feel so bad for him.
I went into denial. Like, the first, you know what I mean? I was like, no. like I don't get to fucking like think he got his head ripped off in the last book and he survived for this. Like fuck. I wanted him to be alive so bad. I was just like, there's even that line where you hear like he's listening and he hears the words like "breathe, Horse King, breathe."
No. Yeah, and what we get of Serwa out of that too. Like I feel like Serwa loved Sorwheel.
Yes, and that's the thing, and that's what was so impressive to me about her character development, especially in this book. Not only does she kick a lot of ass, she shows us that a Dunyan can love. You know, maybe she's a half Dunyan, but the thing is, still, this was a huge issue with her mom. You know, like fucking Esmenet is like kind of heartbroken the fact that her children don't understand or can't really love, and we see that is not exactly true with Serwa, because she fucking certainly loves Sorwheel.
And but it's kind of tragic too, because aside from the obvious, but like, does she love Sorwheel the person? Because he's under the mask of like her family's arch nemesis of these gods. Like, he's wearing this mask. She can't see him. And then we get the reveal that her sleeping with her brother was all a ruse to make Sorwheel hate them for the non-men deal. Because so we're led to believe that
so the Nyom could be respected or whatever. Yep.
Yes, it's and he still doesn't hate them, and she's like so confused. And is this something that spurs her love? Is that like, this person who I've done everything to make them hate me, they still love me? Does that like sort of narcissistically inspire her to love Sorwheel? But none of that Sorwheel, it's all a mask that he didn't have any control over.
Really crazy, right? Because you're looking at a girl who's basically incapable of love, finding true love, but it's like
true love.
It's not at all. Like,
a guy who doesn't even exist.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And then there's that scene where, you know, obviously Sorwheel and Serwa end up getting it on, and Serwa kind of lets the evidence show to Moengus, and then Moengus kills himself over it, or attempts to kill himself. What did you guys make of that?
Just where he like leaves the leap or whatever and stays behind, kind of deal. So it was like the first time I read it, I was like, oh, she left him fucking behind. And then I thought that she goes into this conversation, and it's like kind of an argument between some fans or whatever, but it's like, what did she just screw him, or did she? Because she talks about how she tells Sorwheel, like, once the kids outrun their use to their father, they're done. They're going to be discarded, and nobody knows that more than Serwa. So was her leaving him behind a way of like maybe a last ditch effort to give him a chance at life? Not a guarantee, but at least a chance, because she knows for a fact there is no surviving her father.
And she could have done it at any point, but she chooses, if this is what she did, she chooses to do it right next to a group of people that Moengus technically belongs to. Like, they're right next to the Sylvendi, and they all know that's what he is, that he probably has a better chance.
I mean, it's a big toss of the number sticks, like if it would work out, but I mean, as we see it basically does for Moengus. What'd you guys think about Nair and Moengus? Like, this is like Daddy of the Year award. He's such a dick.
I just had a moment. I was like, wow, we're really getting this. Like, this is not something I expected ever to see. And here we are. And Nair is a absolute batshit crazy. Like, out of his mind.
Classic Nair.
Yeah, it's so good, dude. I love, like, there's some shit that he says to Moengus that's just like, God, like, he tells him like he'll lop his fucking limbs off if he steps out of line again and shit. But there is this great line I really picked up this second time while he has like Moengus in the camp, and they're talking to each other and stuff, and Nair is basically like, you know, telling him, it's like, you grew up with these fucking Dunyan, you know, blah blah, and he's talking about like, also like, because Moengus tries to kind of like rebuttal about the skin spy, Serwa and stuff. And Nair's just like, yeah, of course, they got fucking faces like fingers. But what about the Dunyan? He's like, if they had faces like fingers, you'd be calling for swords and fire. But they don't. They have souls like fingers. And I was just like, oh.
Holy shit.
Yeah, there's some really heavy shit that gets passed between father and son, you know. Of course, you know, it's not like, you know, in that endearing. It's very like forced onto his son, you know, but it's pretty profound shit.
Well, parenthood in this series is described as bags of meat birthing meat, which is
I
like,
don't, and I
That's
doubt
not
that the
wrong,
Skilvendi
technically.
custom for like fathers probably just a regular Skilvendi probably doesn't treat their kids that well either. This is like people that are on the go, warriors and shit. Like they're probably a pretty rough upbringing, though I do think that Naor probably took it to the next level.
yeah, I'd say he's the extreme version of this.
And us, like modern people, have pretty different ideas of what parenthood means too. Like for
Mhm.
the vast majority of history, it's like you have children so that you have an asset to work on your farm for you. And now it's like children are a luxury, if not a liability, because of the expense and how little it seems like the community cares about each other and the children. Just interesting explorations of parenthood on all angles. I like thinking about like what our Western modern biases do when we read about these like very, very different, one might call them savage or barbarian societies of these past and these fantasy worlds. It's always interesting.
Yeah, we got a little bit more of the culture. I mean, obviously the Skilvendi, but also the tribe that I always mess up his name, Zongranga.
The Zoom.
Yeah, the person who ends up assaulting Sorwheel to shield the weak, right?
Zoranga.
Yeah, we get like more of his like his culture.
That's right.
That he talks about, which is really, really cool.
Oh yeah, and his who's his servant Obawega.
Yes,
I can't remember his servant's name, but he.
Yeah, Obategua.
Okay,
yeah.
was that in White Luck Warrior or Great Ordeal that he comes back?
White Luck Warrior, I believe.
Okay, gotcha.
I might be wrong though.
Okay, because I know they run into each other again after they left him in White Luck Warrior when the Shrink were attacking. I'm getting all these. Mark, I don't know how you kept any of this straight through all
I had to get it. I had to get it immediately out of my head. As soon as I like basically read a book, it was like, boom, get the fucking camera ready, dude. Because like we got to get this shit out now.
Just you not spoiling us this whole time.
God. Yeah, honestly, really impressive.
Like, I can't. This is a month or two in the past for me, and I'm already like, was that White Luck Warrior, Great Ordeal?
Yeah, it's so dense. It's so dense, and some like even like Jimmy, like you mentioned, it's like kind of like I think you were saying like Darkness and Warrior Prophet, or maybe you were saying Warrior Prophet and Thousandfold Thought, where it felt like one thing. You know what I mean? And then how these other books kind of felt like one thing as well. That's a thing. It's so with all this dense shit and some of it kind of feeling like one. It's easy to kind of mesh some shit up. You know what I mean? It's tough. It's a tall ask to try to fucking remember all this shit, which is why it makes it so intriguing to have conversations. Cause it's like, oh shit, you remembered that. I forgot about that. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cause there's plenty, that you're going to forget. It's just impossible to hang on to everything. That's why, taking notes, making videos and stuff is good to like kind of capture it. But if you do think about any of this stuff, don't be surprised. Like if your theories, your feelings, everything can evolve on it.
Yeah, and I wonder if you all feel this way. Like we're talking about like the series and we love it. Obviously, it's all of our like top 3 or whatever it might be. But for me, it's like when I'm starting to think about like end of the year, I always do a top 10 books and whatnot. And I'm like, I don't know what book I would pick out of this. Like I feel like the sum of its parts is what I consider, and not so much an individual book. Like I can't sit here and say the Unholy Consult is what brought it all together. It's just not that.
Yeah, you really need all of them, right?
Yeah,
like
in
a way,
the Field of
Nothing is one book and Aspect is one book. It's like
reading the horrors of the Field of Appalling and everything in the Unholy Consult, it has no weight behind it if you don't read the other 6 books. If you just picked up the Unholy Consult, you're like, this is trash.
Yeah,
this is just like some guy trying to shock me with gore. But reading those past 6 books, like it just weighs on your soul when you read it, and it doesn't feel shock. It doesn't feel like it's just there to gross you out. It really, and that's what I like so much about Aspect Emperor. The disturbing, gory, horrific stuff, it's not there to shock you. It is so like the vileness of it like just seeps into your brain and has so much weight behind it, and it really hurts.
Oh yeah, the vile. What do you guys think about the fucking Sith ring getting unloaded there at the fucking Golgotha. That was pretty cool by Iakis. And he's like sending them out to fucking go attack the fucking gates and shit. And then they're so close to hell that they're like, wait a minute.
I was so confused.
Like, it's very confusing. The second time it made so much more sense.
Okay.
The first time through, I was like, this is just gross and weird.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I thought that was very confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the funny thing is like, yeah, because of where they're at, these demons, you know, the Sith ring or whatever, a lot more powerful.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of cool shit. Did you guys know that there was a map for Golgotha?
Not until after I needed it.
Yeah, right. So if you reread it,
like the very back.
I can't recommend it enough. I did that on this. I think I had it pulled up on my phone, and the battle reads so much better. Like if you have that map, because then you understand like where the high qual is, the fucking, you know, the risers, everything.
The risers were what did it for me. Like
which horn is which, everything. Mm-hmm. The battle on the risers is phenomenal, and that's so like good. Really where we get to see the spear, right?
Yeah, bringing that horn down, and it just like silences everybody and kills so many strength when that giant horn hits the battlefield. Oh man! And a huge fist pump moment for me was when the non-men show up, and they're like, "Non-men have joined
Here comes
the Great
cavalry.
Ordeal." Yeah, join the Great Ordeal.
I have to admit, that scene with the non-men showing up hit way harder my second time reading through this, because I did get a little confused, a little like lost amongst the scuffle, so to speak, the first time through, where the second time was like, oh, okay, fuck it, I got this. Like I see now, I'm like not so like lost in the chaos. I see it pretty clear, and damn, that's an exciting fucking part.
Yeah, and especially I really like it as it kind of rounds out what Sorwheel's done for the Great Ordeal, because that wouldn't have happened without Sorwheel going down and meeting that guy's dad and bringing him up and taking back over the non-men mountain from the guy that was dousing himself in Mwama oil. Yeah.
I mean, they can never like stop. I have like that shit burned into my brain. These dudes just fucking oiled up, fucking.
I think this is a really interesting point from Hopper says, I feel like I couldn't enjoy the battle as much because as I should have, because I was so eager to get back to Kellis and the answers I was after. And I kind of felt this as well.
It is an interesting choice for Bakker to make, where instead of just kind of like following it as things kind of happen, he like pops us through the perspectives. And it could either go two ways. You're going to be like really loving the tension, or you're going to be annoyed and you just want to get back to what you're like, you want the answers. So you let this shit slide because you're just smashing through it to get back to the fucking, what you think is the most important part of the story, you know, kind of deal. And a lot of this stuff that's going down is just so fucking amazing. That's like, I wish that like people did get it, you know, even before the battle cracks off, there's some really fucking amazing stuff. The part where Soroyan goes out, plants his flag, and him and his guys are just like fucking rallying around. And then like at night, they just kind of fucking disappear and no one sees them again.
So wild.
You know, it's just fucking, how eerie is that shit? You know what I mean? And then like, they haven't even seen a bad guy yet.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's some great vibes that get thrown off. To me, this was one of the most epic fucking books I'd ever read, and it was crazy because it was really short. I mean, as far as like for an epic fantasy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like 400 pages, 450 pages.
Yeah, that's not that long for an epic fantasy book, but it still seems to be crammed full of goodies.
Even with all the like pessimism and nihilism and everything horrible that's happening, there are so many good moments. Like, when the horn came down, it was a fist pumping moment. When the non-men join, and one of the big ones for me, I think it's like the end of chapter 6. It's when everyone's kind of finally detoxing from the strength meat, and are all kind of coming back to themselves
and they're
and realizing what they've done. And
that hit me heavy in the chest.
Yeah, just that realization of everything you've done. And
it's like whenever I wake up from my night of drinking, usually.
Right.
I'm like, what have I done?
It's very like, just like maybe you might think like Bakker's the evil genius. Certainly fucking Kellis is, because not only had he figured out a way to get these fucking people across, you know, an impossible fucking circumstances and get away with it like blame free, he also found a way to like put all these people in a fucking mind frame that there's nothing left to lose. This is what they have. Like, this is the fucking, you want a shot, like a maybe making your soul a little less damnable. It's right in front of you, boys. There it is. You know, the black mark on our fucking whiteboard. Let's go erase it. It might be the one thing you have left to hope that you don't end up in hell.
Dude, right before he says that the Great Ordeal had failed, essentially, he talks about awe and how it bucks against like the sides of the soul and how it overcomes it. And awe is the heart aimed at all horizons. Awe is how we belong to what beggars our conception. And then he continues to go on about vacancy and Imperium and all this stuff. And then it ends with, so we might dwell in the husk of ancient certainty unto the end of our bloodless days, so we might tremble at beauty, numb to truth. And it's like, what the fuck? And then you know, a page later it says, and the Great Ordeal died, and then it's all over. Meat.
Something must be
Meat
eaten.
be praised.
Meat be praised. The communion that they take from Proyas's POV before they march is absolutely messed up, but so epic. Like, I'm at the point where I'm like sitting there with a shrink leg, and I'm like, let's do it.
They're like passing around the chalices and like pouring the blood of the weepers into it and drinking. Oh, God.
A real chopper.
Oh, God. Dude, I mean, even at that point where they're like killing their horses and then mocking the sounds that the horses make as they die, it's like they're so removed from being like compassionate fucking people at that point. You know what I mean?
They're not.
Maybe they never were, but I mean, at that, like, if you're straight up killing your mount, you're an animal that helped carry you across the fucking wasteland,
they're loving it,
and you're liking it and making fun of him.
Dude.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Christos. You guys remember Mershoa? Because I wanted to bring this up.
Him dying from Squathala the Black was
absolutely
so funny. I thought it was hilarious.
Dude, it's great because it's realistic. It is funny, but it's also kind of realistic. It's like, and there's that moment that he gets, like, where he's like, he's at the intrinsic gate. He's the first one there. And then it all starts to kind of hit him. Like, he's like, fuck. Shit. You know, I was just kind of wanting to be the first one here because it was like in the moment, like, you know, I want to be kind of a hero, and here I am, and fuck, bad idea.
And then just dies.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because he also starts to like quote, like he does like kind of overcome some shit. Like his way to the intrinsic gate is fucking filled with blood and death, you know. And I love that he finds the cinder sword. I love the magical sword in this, you know what I mean? I love that the fucking Shrank had him at first, like, and they're fucking up the Ordeal men, and they end up killing them and stealing the sword and shit. But yeah, like Mershoa actually, you know, he's scared, but he does like manage to pull off like a kind of an impossible feat by not dying from like the first like cataract of fire or whatever that Cthulhu burns at him, because the sword protects him. But then he gets cocky and he's got to start spouting scripture, you know, like no evil, fucking whatever. And fucking Cthulhu just
pancakes him
right down on him. And the only thing that fucking is left is like one bit of a leg and like his hand holding the sword.
So epic. And the sword remains. Like, I think that's pretty cool imagery.
Yeah, and it's awesome that Serwa ends up with it. So she goes in there and fucks shit up. Now, one thing that confused me, I think, at the first was when Serwa and Caiutis are at the intrinsic gate and they're kind of arguing. And I wasn't really sure. The second time through, it made so much sense. It was like, because Serwa's the one that's telling him, it's like, well, you know, obviously, you know, they took fucking father up there by himself. And Caiutis wants to kind of like hold off, but Serwa's like wanting to push forward. And she's like, well, what the fuck do you think? Why do you think that all this shit's going on? Have you guys not even once thought of the possibility? And they're like, what possibility? And like, I don't even know if she really says it, but it kind of gets conveyed, at least, that fucking Kellis could fail.
Yes.
No one has even thought about this, really, you know? And now all of a sudden it's just kind of like, you know, so she's like, look, we have to keep fucking going, because with or without him, this is it. This is the fucking fight, guys. Like,
yeah.
And she ends up going in there by herself because
cleaning house,
sick with it.
Which I think also kind of brings up this question that was posed a little earlier. It says, what do you think about the old discussion that Bakker does not write good female characters, that he is a sexist, etc.? We kind of did touch on this on another discussion, I remember, and Amanda, I got your take on it. But I think my opinion that it is not that Bakker's not a misogynist. Like, I don't believe that for a second.
People are always going to find something to complain about, because along the same lines of that one, I've seen like, oh, well, Serwa, Serwa's a shitty written character because it's just him trying to prove that he's not a misogynist.
It's like, yes, the guy who had people eating other human beings and licking their face after radiation poisoning definitely care. Like, come on, guys. He's doing what he wants, clearly. And
even if Serwa, like, was his answer to the is Bakker a misogynist question, who cares? Like, that was awesome.
Like, yeah, she's a great character.
People shit on it, being like, "Oh, that's just a girl power moment." I'm like, well, I don't give a fuck. I loved it.
If you're saying like, "Oh, it's just a girl power moment," I kind of feel like you're the misogynist. Like, can a woman? If that was some dude character doing that, would we even be questioning it? Like,
exactly. And I think if anything, everything is what it is in this series. Like, he obviously didn't pull any punches. So I agree with you. Just because there's the presence of a girl being strong and doing ridiculously epic things, like, I don't think that's any way pandering to anyone.
And the other thing too is, I think a lot of people that throw this criticism at Bakker have not gotten very far into the series. Correct. They read Darkness, and then they made their series. They made every book he wrote they took, criticized him off of just one book that they read. Now you got to push further into the series. I'm going to admit myself, when I read just Darkness, one of the big things, and it's even in my fucking spoiler-free reviews, like, one of the things that was just kind of out there was like, fuck, the female characters are kind of getting the short end of the stick here. But as you push forward,
everyone gets the short end of the stick.
Everybody's getting the short end of the stick. If you don't think that dudes are getting the bad fucking shit happening to them, well, fucking finish the series. Because guess what? They are fucking... they get fucked bad. Everybody. It's not about men, women. It's about people. And they're all fucked.
That's right. That's 100% right. Do you shit when you shit? That encompasses
the it's so good.
Yeah, I have a problem whenever people make series-wide statements and things like that with only reading one part, because I think you're becoming, especially if you're going to do a review on any series, not just this one, but you're then going into a handshake deal saying that if I'm going to go and put a criticism out of what this series is and is not about, that you have to accept the fact that the narrative extends past one book if you're going to read a series. It really bothers me when I see people say that Dune is a white messiah story. Because that is just that's a farce. That's not true at all. It's clearly a critique of that. And well, I didn't read book 2, so how would I know? And it's like, well, you probably should before you say a series is about one thing or another.
Yeah,
really bothers me.
I just read Messiah. I had like drug my feet on it because everybody's like kind of puts it on the low end of like ratings. I liked it more than I liked Dune.
Holy shit! I
really liked it. And also, have you read those books? Amanda, have you read the Dune saga? Man,
I read like half of the first one 10 years ago.
By the time I got to the second book, I went, holy fuck. There's so much like shit I see in Bakker's stuff that obviously was inspired by these books. Like the Scytelle face dancer. I mean, just the Atreides alone are just like Dune.
Yes.
And they go into the prescient, just like the thousandfold thought. They're going and checking these. Like, I mean, I really love that goddamn book. But yeah, that's a big thing, right? It's like, it's just a great example. The white savior, Paul Atreides. It's like, well, you didn't go very far into that series, did you?
Yeah, and it's a pretty big label to throw on something, right? Like I think you have to do your due diligence. And I think we would all agree that Bakker writes very good female characters, even though it's a terrible world. Esmanette is fantastic. Mamara is like insane. It's weird to think that like Mamara wasn't in Prince of Nothing, really. Like, to me, I feel like I've been with her for all 7 books.
Yeah, because I guess you, in a way, just by like you knew of her, you just didn't really get to spend any time of her, and you kind of thought she was dead.
Yeah, I did.
Because that's kind of what you get hit with. You're just like, oh yeah, like this. She did have a daughter before, but the baby's dead, whatever. Yeah. And then you kind of get re-hit with new information, and But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things that like there's definitely some little bits in there that would make sense to why you would feel like she had been a part of this show, like the series the whole time.
Yeah, and she's so much of an echo of Esme.
And she's massively like a very, very, very strong female character.
Mamara is awesome.
That was like the first one. I was like, holy fuck, like she's really like fleshed out like one of the strongest female characters I've read. Not that I've, like read every goddamn book. But
how dare you, Mark?
I know it's always like somebody's like, oh, well, it doesn't compare to this. I'm like, well, I've never even heard of that. All right. So
yeah, it drives. Yeah. There's always something
shit to say, dude. And Baker, I'm sure you guys probably knows. I mean, like, yeah, he gets a lot of hate. He gets a lot of hate for being misogynistic, or there's just all this rapey vibe shit going on. And I just try to like, look, I loved I saw your little answer the other day, Jimmy, and I really loved your take on the whole like sexual deal and like me, like kind of like relaying it to agency. For me, I just look at it. I'm like, look, this is uncompromising. If you wanted to have a good time, I'm like, there's a lot of books out there that are a good time. You know what I mean? Not that this isn't a good time, but it's not like a comfy good time. This is like amazing, but it's also uncompromising. It's going to test your fucking will and your stomach and everything. It's a wild goddamn ride. But besides like the fantasy elements, like the human actions, like the human behaviors are not fantasy. These are very grounded human behaviors and actions. Like this shit has happened in real history.
Yeah.
Millions of fucking times for, probably fucking thousands of years.
Yeah. No one treats humans worse than humans.
That's it.
There's no doubt about that. And everything else around them. Whenever the nuke went off in this book, I just immediately thought, hey, we did that. Like humans did that to one another. That's That's terrible. Yeah, that is so heinous. And like the inspection of that in the follow-up chapter, like we talked about, is just like it's hard to stomach. I mean, it's grueling. And
everything in these books has happened in real life. Like, then maybe not to the extent of creating just a human that is purely a womb with some sentience around it, like the Dunyan have done. But yeah, humans experiment on each other. Humans eat each other, rape each other, all the time.
Yeah, I think we have rose-tinted glasses when we think about humanity at some points, but maybe that says more about my feelings towards the human race than anybody else or anything else. Just, yeah.
I certainly have my opinions.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing as well. You don't have to agree with everything in the book. Like there's even pieces of this. Like I'm still not sure where I stand on determinism as a person. Like I go back and forth daily on it, to be honest. And but it's worth exploring. It's worth hearing out the argument. And it just happens to be wrapped up into this badass epic fantasy. And yeah, it is unflinching. It is uncompromising, and it is rough. And I'll say AP's least favorite comment ever. And I'll say, it's not for everyone. And AP would say, well, nothing's for everyone.
Yeah, he's totally right. But I think a lot of readers understand what you're meaning. Like they don't take it so literal. They know what you're meaning. They're like, oh, it's not for everyone, meaning it's for even less.
Yes, yeah, it's even less. All six of us here.
Yeah, the scope, the net that it casts is not as wide as something like Sanderson. You know what I mean? Yes. Or even fucking Tolkien, which is a massive inspiration. We could 100%. Say, but I like that. I don't like my books. I don't like it when I feel like there's a boundary placed on a story where it was like, oh, you could see that they could have went there, but they didn't. They didn't want to go there. You know what I mean? Where Baker went there and beyond. He literally fucking ended a 7-book goddamn series on a fucking note where everyone's like dead, and whoever is left alive is fucked.
That's not good.
And let's. I don't know if you guys were waiting, because I was, for Wutiat, who does not make an appearance.
I was.
So now, and I was just talking with Madness, because remember when we were talking before about like when they meet Wutiat, he says, not even the black heaven commands me. So that means now you have the no god walking around, and Wutiat, who is also, I'm pretty sure, completely blind at this point, or it can't hear or can't see because of the fucking fight he had with Cleric and a commune. So you have the King of Dragons flying around, and he can do whatever the fuck he wants. And he can't, and he can't see anything, so he's just gonna fuck some shit up. So I really do like this. It's so nonsense, but I mean, it's for fun. So it's like somebody said this, and I'm like all on board that one day Wutiat will return with Sarl riding on his back.
Inject it directly into my veins.
Oh man! And then I was talking about it with Madness. He was like, "Yeah," and the captain's beard or head will still be flinging in his beard, and they'll save the world.
I mean, if Sarl becomes Superman, I'm down.
It'd be so great to see.
And
Sarl again.
they find the actual Heron Spear.
Oh,
Sarl just does one last line of Cleric before flying in.
What a
Can you
line.
imagine like everyone's like dealing with the fucking Noga, like about to fucking die, and then just like they could hear something out like up in the distance, and it's Sarl on the fucking dragon, like the coppers, boys.
Oh my god!
And then shooting the spear.
He has a golden coffer that's a nuke again. Oh man!
Oh god, dude, that'd be dope.
It would be so dope. Red Viper asked Mark if he'll be making any more Aspect Emperor discussions with Madness.
Yeah, I actually have one. I just have to upload it. I tried to upload it before this, and it's like 2 hours long, so it's taken a bit. And I had to cancel it, so that way I wasn't fucking with my internet too much. So I'll be probably getting it up today or tomorrow, and I'll probably have 2 or 3 more of those fucking things. I mean, we could talk about this stuff forever, guys. I don't think
Yeah, dude.
Talk till our fucking faces turn blue. But I like that about the series.
Yeah, if there's ever any topics you have that you just want to discuss, like, and focus on, like, dude, so please feel free.
I would like to do that. I would love if you guys are interested. Like, we could try to, like, you know what I mean? No pressure or anything. You know what I mean? Obviously, you want to keep everything as fun as possible because we don't get paid for this shit. We're just, we're doing it because we love it. And I wouldn't want to make it a job, but I'd be super down if some people wanted to get together and do that very focused, you know what I mean? Because that's the one problem I think with this series is it's so easy to go off.
Oh, look what we did.
Yeah, it happened. This is why the Madness talks are going to be like 4 or 5 long, and they're all fucking hour or 2 hour. It's just because it just goes bananas when you start talking about it. So it would be really dope if we could focus on just like one thing. And of course, we'll probably stray little bits here and there, but if we could I would really like to do like deep dives on shit like the Core. You know what I mean?
I would love that because honestly, the Core, I know what the function of it is, but I still don't really understand.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still a lot to like kind of fucking dig into there. I mean, all kinds of stuff. The Dune Yang. Fuck. Because I mean, do you guys feel like where they came from?
No,
I don't.
This is something I'd love to dive into because we kind of got a little bit about the Dunyan when they do like a Dunyan autopsy, or we kind of learn about the structure of their brains. And Jimmy and I kind of got onto this, and this is just a can of worms into neuroscience and consciousness and everything. And that's we could go for hours about that. There's like side reference books that we need to read.
The bicameral mind.
Yeah, the breakdown of consciousness, or the like the rise of consciousness in the breakdown of the bicameral mind. And Scott Bakker's done a podcast episode about that and all of his neuroscience knowledge and what that means for how the Dunyan operate. I've got some theories about that. So yeah, I would love nothing more than to just talk about this series forever.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that. The bicameral mind is something that I need to read so that I can go and apply it to what I know, because someone that I know that knows Bakker said that 100% that is being used, even in terms of nothing.
Isn't that what's also like, that's another like really intriguing part about these books is not only do they like suck you in and just absorb all of you, but the thing is they also get you really like
curious,
like excited for other stuff,
yes,
like things that had obviously an impact on creating this. So like since reading these, I mean, I went back and I read like the Iron Men and Saints, I think it's what it's called, by Harold Lamb, which was a big influence on the Prince of Nothing. And if you read that, it's you could totally tell. I believe it's it isn't. I don't think it's historical fiction. I'm pretty sure it almost like reads like it, but I want to say it. There's like it's like true accounts of shit that went down during like fucking the Crusades and that time and every period and everything. But also just in which it's written, I think you'd be like, it has that kind of like Homer-esque, like very epic like deal to it, which is really fucking cool. But then also I'm like doing fucking deep dives in philosophy. My little like pea brain is like stretched. Like my two brain cells are arguing with each other, trying to figure out philosophy now. I mean, there's just so much. This book or these books opened up so much more than just their own series to me. You know what I mean? Like they made all this other stuff so much more shiny and interesting. And how could you ask for more out of a book to make you on fire for?
That's right.
You know, just things, you know, even in your own world. You know, I don't know if you guys did any like research. Like I started doing a lot of research in the Crusades after Prince of Nothing. And I was blown away with the actual parallels to our own world.
Yeah. One that stood out to me, I think there's a battle that I know a lot. I think it's is it the Thousandfold Thought or Warrior Prophet? It might be like the final battle of like Thousandfold Thought, where everyone's like, oh, that doesn't make any sense that they won that, or that like, you know, their battle madness was enough, like their you know, like we're in the right, so we're gonna win. Like that actually worked out for them, but that was based off the Battle of Antioch, and that's exactly what happened. So yeah, just things like that. Where some of these battles or tactics might be inspired by is something I'd love to get more into.
Yeah, I got some homework to do. Goddamn. I would love, and if you're listening to this after the fact or live or whatever, when the video is done, go in the comment section and put some, you know, materials and stuff that maybe would be interesting to go through, especially when it comes to the Crusades, because I mean, obviously I have like a general overview, but I don't know much about the specifics of it. So I would love to have more stuff to read. Bicameral Mind's definitely the number one thing that I'm interested in, because I think it's a fascinating idea in theory. But I think we have covered in some way the second apocalypse here on the channel, and we've done these last two books, and I know people are going to comment and be like, how could you not comment on this? Well, it's tough.
It's impossible. I mean, I know like Coringus, like you know, Kellis's son, and his whole absolute fucking epiphany, if you will. There's so much shit. It's really tough. I mean, literally, like I said, we could have discussions every goddamn week for the whole year and still leave shit out.
Yeah, and I hope that this is something that we can keep it open. Mark, I love the idea that you had about that. And, you know, me and Amanda, at least once a week, I think, message in the channel and just like, hey, just so you remember, these books are awesome. It's very important to remember. And I'll just randomly say, you know, the slog of slogs, and there's a head on a pole behind you. I love saying that to people who don't even know the series, and they just look at me and I'm like, you know, whatever. So
have both of you guys, I know you guys read Malazan, but have both of you guys, like Amanda, did you read Martin and stuff before as well? So you guys, like, see, that's one thing, like you guys have both read like these kind of big name, like pretty, you know, I don't know if those guys are dense, but they're definitely, it's a lot. Like those are pretty big undertakings, right? And you guys had both accomplished that before coming into Baker. I really think that, because like I said, I was really like this little ride with you guys. I've been really, really impressed with both of you. Like some of the shit you guys come up with, I'm just like, how the fuck do you catch that? Like
because we watched your video,
you, Amanda. Like you're really good at like capturing this stuff. Where I'm like, I read this twice. How the fuck did you get that? Like, because it makes sense. And I'm like, I'm definitely looking at getting into Martin here at the beginning of the year, and then I think after him, I'll jump into Erickson. And I'm interested to see, because I know like these are kind of like the titans fantasy, adult fantasy, I should say. And I just want to wonder, like, where did you, like, after reading this, did it move? Did it like steal anybody's place?
Yeah,
like,
I think
this is the number one series for me. But see, I've only read one book by Martin and one book by Erickson, so I can't speak for their series. Where I have read all of Baker's, and it blows me away, like how miles above it is, like to the rest.
Amanda, why don't you answer this first, because I know that you feel very strongly about this.
depends on the day, honestly, but it's either Second Apocalypse or Malazan. That's my favorite. Whether or not one or the other is in the top spot that day, however I'm feeling, R. Scott Bakker is my favorite author, no question. Just the breadth of concepts that he can explore in such a like enthralling actual piece of fiction, and in the just like the elegant brutality of his prose and how important and heavy everything feels, just bar none. No authors ever impressed me this much. And I've read every novel that Bakker has written now. I read Neuropath, and I've also read Disciple of the Dog, which is his like noir detective kind of mystery, which was fantastic.
Yeah, and that's the one I always got confused. I kept thinking of that one as Neuropath. I kept thinking Neuropath was his noir, like detective noir, but it's not, right? So
it's not. Yeah, Neuropath is like his sci-fi kind of like techno thriller, and Disciple of the Dog is a very not standard because it's Bakker, but it's a detective noir mystery told in that first person, gritty. Oh, I'm a chain smoking detective kind of. But the narrative voice in that is perfection. Like completely different in every way than Prince of Nothing, but it's like first person perspective and written in a guy's like journals, and it blew me away with how like just cuttingly cynically hilarious that character was. Like it was an incredible book. So yeah, by far favorite author, like no question.
Nice,
just love it.
Yeah, watching you come out of Malazan and the experience I know that you had with it, and then to go into Bakker, and I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. Like, I was like, I honestly am not sure. And watching you come to the realization that you have just read like back to back, like two of your favorite authors was really, really cool. Honestly, I love seeing people find stuff they love. For me, Bakker is without a doubt probably the most talented writer of all time. Like, I don't know anybody that has more style and impact through their prose than he does. I just think that he's phenomenal. As far as like where this is and has it unseated things, it definitely started making a bit of chaos for me and trying to figure out exactly what goes into like something being your favorite, right? And how do you judge that? Because Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb, by all accounts, has emotionally affected me more than any other series I've ever read. I think it's the greatest character development ever. Like I believe that. But there are books that exist in the Realm of the Elderlings that I do not enjoy. Same. So consistency, I think, is a massive piece of the pie, but also variance. So I got to give like some nod to the fact that Robin Hobb tried other things in that series that were pretty adventurous, and they do work for other people, which is really nice. Malazan, to me, my hot take for Malazan, I've always say this, is that I just loved every single book. Like a lot of people are like, I didn't really like book one, or I like this book, and this book's a 1-star, but this one's a 5. I just loved it the whole way through. Like I could not stop reading those books. It has the same effect that Second Apocalypse has on me, is the fact that I don't know if I can like chill and read it. You know what I mean? And then this is where A Song of Ice and Fire has always had me, just by the heart, is the fact that I can go into it with the mindset of like a Malazan or the Second Apocalypse and really get something out of it still. Or I can casually read it and feel like I'm home. And part of that is because it was formative for me as a reader. And I am in no way saying that I think that Martin is better than anybody else or anything like that, because I know people are like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's just me. It's like my experience and the moods and where I was in my life when I read that has led me to Bakker. It has led me to Erickson. It has led me to Robin Hobb. It has led me to Berserk. It has led me to this channel that I have today. So to disregard the history of that and how powerful it has been for me as an individual would be unjust, I think. So for me, I still feel A Song of Ice and Fire at my top, and it's impressive that it's still there, because after I read Malazan, I was very nervous to reread, because Malazan made me a better reader. Bakker has now made me a better reader, but I have found returning to that reading these series that maybe go further than he does in A Song of Ice and Fire on certain aspects make me appreciate the balance that comes with A Song of Ice and Fire in a lot of ways. And I could talk about this for like 3 hours, because I think about this all the time.
Yeah, that's a good point though too. Like I think like with just the growth you can get as a reader from some of these guys, right?
Oh yes, I mean it's paying attention to the details. Like if I hadn't read Malazan before Prince of Nothing, I don't know if this would have went as well. Like Erickson really, really trained me in a different way and made me appreciate a different facet of writing. And also psycho distance from your POV is really, really important in Malazan. And it's actually really important in this as well. Like Kellis. Like so many people that read this are like, why can't I just have all Kellis POVs? And it's like, that's the point. Like that's actually exactly the purpose behind the POV choices. So I think that Erickson is someone who absolutely understands the craft, and he uses many devices through the 10 books. I mean, every book has a different, they follow the kind of the same structure of books, but like the actual narratives are structured totally different. And I love the stuff that he plays with. And I think it made me a better reader to when I got to Bakker, who is very focused in what he's doing. Like he does this and he does it very, very well, that I was able to appreciate it more. So it's hard to pick a favorite a lot of the times because so many people do so many different things. And from my subjective experience as a reader, I don't know if the building blocks were put in different ways. If I wouldn't have appreciated it. If I would have read Realm of the Otherlings 3 years ago, I would have said it was boring. And I would have been a fool.
Yeah, well, see, and that's kind of where I'm at now. Cause like I read Game of Thrones, the first book of A Song of Ice and Fire, like right when the TV show came out. I was like, okay, I'll pick up this book. I read it and I just wasn't ready for it. I was not ready for it. And now I'm like really chomping at the bit to get back into it like with this, cause now like I'm just such a stronger, more accomplished reader right now. Like it wasn't anything against Martin. It was anybody, any like kind of like fantasy that wasn't straightforward, fast paced, like was probably going to be over my fucking dumb head. You know what I mean? I needed to do a reader workout. I needed to slowly tackle some stuff and build up to that where I could appreciate this like denser writing or more perspectives and all this stuff, which is also why I'm interested in Erickson again, because one of the turnoffs for me with Erickson was the multiple perspectives. It was just too many for me. I wanted to spend time with like one guy or two guys, 3 or whatever. And it just was like nonstop. And I wonder if that has changed in me a little bit, though I'm kind of doubtful because I have checked out other books that are lots of perspectives, and it seems to still kind of, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. I'd rather spend more time with characters, which is one thing I think I liked about Bakker.
Yeah, Bakker's a way more.
He'll take his time.
Yeah, for sure. Even though there is that psycho distance in this, it is way more A Song of Ice and Fire in that regard, where it's way closer to the characters, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm pretty excited to like give these other guys that second try. You know what I mean? I'm kind of trying to play it smart though, and not try to smash them both in at the same time. So I'm going to tackle Martin first, and then I'll go on to Erickson.
I am very excited to see what you think of A Feast for Crows, because it's universally considered to be people's least favorite A Song of Ice and Fire book, and I think it's the best. And yeah, it's very much like the fallout of like.
Is this like the 4th or 5th book or whatever?
It's the 4th book, and a lot of people were mad because he split the POVs. But in my opinion, thematically, it is the most beautiful. And there is some really interesting parallels that you can draw for Prince of Nothing, in my opinion. Not as trippy stuff though. I gotta set that up. But
sometimes I have like I've kind of been known to like gravitate towards these books that might not have the most love. Like look at the Dark Tower series. I haven't read all of them, but my favorite one still is the Gunslinger. And everyone, it's the one that kind of gets shit on the most.
It does get shit on the most.
They're like, that's not the good representation of the series. I'm like, well, that sucks because I love it.
How far in are you?
I'm only into like, what is it, Wizard and Glass? I think.
Okay,
now.
I just finished Wizard and Glass.
And Amanda did not like it. And it's my favorite. So we're at me and Amanda, when we love something together, we love it.
Yeah.
And then
I'm digging Dark Tower, but I mean, I can't say that I was like, it was hitting all fucking cylinders for me. Not yet. Or if it will.
I would love to talk to you when you finish it, because I feel like
I do plan on it.
Us three could get back together and have a good conversation and relate to the series. Actually, like the whole time we've been talking, I've just been thinking about Dark Tower. So it's kind of fun that there's a little bit of a tie-in there, I think.
Dark Tower is definitely, for me, like for at least what I've read so far, there's some things that I really, really, really love about it. I really like Eddie Dean, just because he reminds me of somebody I actually know in real life. like multiple people I know in real life. Yeah, there's just a way he writes, and I love the like weirdness of the books. I love
They're weird.
I love the like, and I also
Wastelands?
like the fish out of water kind of stuff you get in the second book when Roland's like he's like Tudor fish sandwiches or whatever.
Aston.
Need some Aston.
Yeah, I need some Aston.
Oh,
there is a scene in the final book, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the plot, and it's between Eddie and Roland. It's literally the funniest thing I think I've ever read, other than the mule scene in Malazan. And when you get there, like once you're finished, well, I'll talk about it, but it has to do with mayonnaise, and it's just so funny.
I just was thinking about, it's like, man, I like, because like I said, now I'm like, after my reread, I'm really just faced with like, what do I really want to tackle? I think I'm going to like, there's a couple people that are doing Martin at the beginning of the year. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to jump in it with them. So I have like some people to do it with and everything. But so for the rest of the year, my shit's just like so open. I'm like, what do I throw in here? And I'm like, well, should I finish some of the stuff I've started? Because that's like, I have the perfect opportunity now, but you know how we are. We're like, oh, we should do this. Well, let's start something new.
Yeah. The next hit.
Yeah.
The next hit.
Have you read Book of the New Sun, Mark?
I am, not the entire, the first book or whatever. I've read like, maybe a quarter of it. It's very good.
Mm-hmm.
I put a pin in it just because it was like, it's one of those things I can get very moody, and I can understand when something's really good, but it's just not as, I'm just not like in the mood for it at the moment. So I need to come back and like just visit it when it's like really, tasty or whatever. But that dude got some talent. That guy, I'll say like the two people like that. I mean, I already knew like a lot of people praised it, so that I guess maybe it wasn't such a surprise, but I mean, in a way it kind of was a little bit of a surprise. I was like, dude, this is really good. Another guy that really surprised me, and I pinned him as well, was Brian Lee Durfee's fucking Forgetting Moon.
It's fun.
And, the only reason why I did it was because of young characters. There's too many young characters. I was like, I need some old people in my shit. Like, I see, like, I'm a big Mark Lawrence fan. I see he's starting a new trilogy, and I'm pretty sure it's about young protagonists again. And I'm just like, God damn it, Mark. God damn it. Like, put some old people in your fucking shit.
I do love me some old people.
I prefer it. I mean, I'm about to turn 41 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you look good for 41. Damn. I
mean, like, I'm not hanging out with 18-year-olds. I'm not hanging out with like fucking 21-year-olds, really. Even like, I hang out like if in person, like I hang out with people that are mostly my own age, or maybe like 10 years younger or something like that. But the people that are just becoming adults, I don't hang around them a shit ton,
Yeah.
Baby.
It's always good for things that speak to us, where we are. And that's one of the things I like about the Second Apocalypse series, is the fact that they're
old.
Yeah, I love it. And they're disgruntled.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I can relate to a lot of that.
Yeah. I
don't know, you guys ever read a book and you're like, I don't know how old you guys are, but like, do you ever read a book and you're like, man, I wish this is a good book, but I kind of wish it was from the older person's perspective.
All the time.
I was just like, there's what is it? The academy trope is like giant in fucking fantasy, And I can barely even read those kinds of books now. But normally if I do and I like it, almost every time I'm like, I wish this would have been told from the teacher's perspective instead of the student.
There you go. Whoever's listening and wants to write a story.
That's it. Do it, and I'll read it and I'll review it.
Do Dark Academia. Do it from the staff.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be kind of cool? At least,
yeah, dude, that sounds awesome.
I feel like it's refreshing, and it's like now you've created a Dark Academia book that I do want to read, because I don't want to read. You're like, oh, you're gonna read Babel? I'm like, nope,
hell no,
nope, not at all.
Flying Squirrel, you wanted to have a question answered, and you said talking about the female characters. We actually talked about this a little bit before, so you can rewind a bit. But yes, they get much better on, but like nothing gets good for anybody. Everyone gets shit on. So we definitely grow. They definitely grow, and some of the best characters, especially in the sequel series, are female. So,
and I can see that point of view too. If you've read the first 1.5, because Serwa, that's a rough female character to latch onto and have that as your representation when you first go in, because that is I like the character of Serwa. I think she's well written. I don't think she's like a problematic portrayal. She is who she is in the time that she's in, but yeah, to have that as your main female representation along with Esmenet, who is a prostitute, it can be concerning until you get to later books.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like if you're haven't pushed into the later stuff, you just wouldn't know. And you can only really go off of what you've seen. And by all means, it's pretty fucking rough for them, you know?
Yes.
Who was it? It's another author. Anna Smith Spark, I think is who it was. She has like, because she's a big Bakker fan. And she has like a whole, like she did like an interview and answered a question that kind of like revolved around this story and talked about how the world is misogynistic, but that's also part of it, you know. This like erasure of women has really made a massive impact on the men of the world, you know. This whole like it's not just surface level, and I think that's the problem. Is some people just look at it like that. They don't dig any deeper because they don't want to. It's uncomfortable. If you don't dig deep into anything, it's all surface level. So it just looks like tropish shit or things that are just thrown at you or what, you know, like, so this guy can't write a fucking female. Like, no, not at all. Like you got to dig into this stuff. And unfortunately, if you're not digging the fucking series, the only way to dig is to keep going.
Yeah. And if someone were to say, hey, this didn't work, I understand. I get it. You know, this is not one I would hold people hostage to read. But for those who do get it, all 38 of us, you know, there's something special about these. I was telling Amanda how like these videos are among my least popular, along with my Berserk videos, but they happen to have like the most dedicated small audience that are just like super helpful and always bring up good points. And
and they want to see your take. They're not just like trying to like get the highlights or try to find out if this next book is the cool one to talk about or whatever. Like they literally want to talk about your thoughts and feelings on the material. It's very refreshing because not all fandoms are like that. I've certainly found, so you know, there's some members of the fandom that are like pretty tough cookies, and you know, they're like, if you try to like talk shit about the series, they'll just come down on you.
The hammer.
Yeah,
they drop the Heron spear.
I've seen some pretty elite comments to people that were trying to like talk bad about the books. Oh, you don't know shit.
You just don't get it, bro.
Yeah. You just have a small brain.
Which is fair for when speaking of me. But
dude, that's why I like to, like, when I read these books, I was like, look, the coolest part about these is I'm the dumbest motherfucker that's ever going to read them. So if I can do it, you can do it.
That was my whole thing with Malazan. I said, I'm going to prove that a average dummy can go through the series and have a good time.
Yeah.
And I did. I had a great time.
Well, because let's face it, these series are intimidating. You know, especially like if you don't read a shit ton, you know what I mean? To look at a multi-book series that's, you know, let's face it, they're not thin little quick reads. You know, some are dense or some are just long as fuck. It could be very intimidating.
Yeah, most certainly. I was intimidated to do this chat because it had been about 2 months, but I think we did a decent job, I hope, for everyone listening. This has been a hell of a ride. I don't think it's over yet. I'm excited, Mark. If you do any of these videos or if I have something, you know, obviously we'll be bringing you guys back. But Amanda, Mark, I want to thank you both so much for being a part of this this discussion series. And I will look back fondly on these videos as some of my favorite that I've made. So thank you both.
Yes, thank you for having me, guys. Like, this has been so much fucking fun. And it was just perfect timing. It got me right back into the books. And I really needed that reread. And it's been so much fun talking about these. I really do think that also I'll talk with Madness. That would be cool if we could all do a video with Madness. Would be really cool. Love it. I'll talk to him and see if we can't arrange some stuff.
That would be sick.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool.
Definitely.
And I just say, I can't thank you guys enough for like including me in on this stuff, man, because it's such a big part of my like reading black heart.
Man, like without Mark, I might not know that this series existed.
Well, that blew me away. I was like, man, I can't believe the lack of like coverage, you know, besides like written reviews on like from when they first came out and stuff and on blogs. But as far as BookTube, it was like crickets. And I was like, how is this possible? I think I even tried to throw out a challenge to booktubers too in one of my videos. It was like, I just want one of you to like try this, like and see for yourself. And it's so nice to see that you guys are picking these things up and you're just adding to the conversation. Like you guys all have like great stuff to add. You know what I mean? It's not, I don't know every fucking thing. And I really appreciate your guys' takes. And so do everybody else. All these fans that have already read it, like guys that read this shit when it first came out are chomping at the bit for the newbies. They can't wait for the souls to be damned so they can say, hey, isn't hell swell? You know, really great that we're all burning together now. Like,
every time we have, like, every time someone in Jimmy's Discord announces that they're starting to read the series, we're all just...
It's great.
Oh, it's you just watch.
Post all your thoughts, please. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm stoked. Like, Philip finally picked up the books. I'm
Joanna.
really excited. Joanna's got it. Oh, and Steve over on Steve Talks Books, like they're doing like a slow like breakdown. I mean, it's getting the light. I would like to see it. Yeah.
I think Alex from Tall Guy Reads and RJ Reads are starting in November with Darkness That Comes Before. So
we're doing our damnedest.
I think Theo
that's all we
too.
can do.
Maybe I'm not sure.
It's awesome.
Good times.
Well, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you, chat. We appreciate you for being here. Drop a like on the video if you're watching after the fact, or if you're watching right now. It helps other people find it. We want to spread the word about the series, but make sure to also go sub to Mark's channel and Amanda's channel. I have him down in the description below. Thank you guys again. I appreciate you both so much. And until we see you next time,